Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. It looks like Gary's kind of figuring about 7:30 in this side.
Okay.
So I say we knock off whatever we knock off. We may not get to it till then anyway.
Okay. It's 7 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If we could stand and state the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, can everyone hear me in the back? Is that better now? Okay, thank you. I'm not going to go ahead and read through all the policy with regards to public being at the meeting. The only thing I would say is, we've mentioned this quite a few times, that you are liable for any statements you say. The other thing I would mention is, if you can keep noise to a minimum, sometimes it's hard for Karen to take notes and know who's making the first and seconds to motions and things of that nature. So if you can be aware of that, please. I'm going to go ahead and read just a quick statement. This was posted to our Facebook page today. I don't know what time, Joe. Probably sometime around 3:30, 4 o'clock. Anyway, I thought Joe did a good job of explaining why we did not postpone the meeting tonight. So I'm going to just read this. The Pocahontas Area Community School District has its July board meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. tonight at the high school commons. We are proud that the PAC girls softball team is playing in the sub-state game this evening. The board members and school district wish the coaches and players the best of luck. PAC typically tries to reschedule board meetings that conflict with state qualifying competition. Tonight, however, the board is not rescheduling the board meeting due to previously scheduled and published hearing on the renewal of the board-approved instructional support levy. The instructional support levy funds approximately $430,000 each year of our teacher salaries. Moving the board meeting would require the district to start over in this renewal process. So that's the reason we didn't reschedule. We would have loved to reschedule to tomorrow night, but with that in mind, we didn't think it was in the best interest of the district to reschedule. So I hope that people are aware of that and are understanding of that. Moving forward, we do have a quorum present, and you should have an agenda in front of you. There's just a couple of amendments to the agenda. Probably the 6th bullet down under business, when it says discuss approve handbooks, we're going to strike through the employee handbook. That one's not prepared and ready yet for us to review. The other amendment being under personnel, we've added a number 7 resignation from Robbie Kudla Gosman. And she is a bus driver, and does she do some janitorial as well? Okay. Anyway, If you make an amendment, or if you make a motion to approve the agenda, if you could try to add those amendments, please.
Move to approve the agenda as changed. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mike, seconded by Nick to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes, the invoices, and the financial reports. And as I state each month, hopefully you've had time to look through all those. The invoices in particular are kind of lengthy each month, so.
Couple questions on that.
Sure.
First, there is a typo in our minutes from last month about the resolution adoption to consider continuing participation in the instructional support program. It's just a typo. Here to correct that from page 2. And then just a question about the
Which area, or just to make sure that we know?
in the minutes, page 2 of the minutes, resolution adopted as follows, resolution to, and then there's the typo.
Okay, I see it.
And a couple words in the same sentence.
Can you speak up, please, so we can hear everything?
Yeah, sorry, just a typo correction to the minutes from last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Do you see those, Karen, on what he's speaking of?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I can get right away.
Perfect.
The other question I had about invoices is, do we have a net total open enrollment dollars out for 22, 23 as a baseline to compare to 23, 24?
I don't know that we have all of those submitted yet for school districts.
Can we get a sum total before the next board meeting?
Yep, we'll try to do that.
Any other comments or questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended with the minutes here?
So moved.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Okay, we have a motion made by Nick, seconded by Tony to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we will lead into what's going well. And Tracy, it looks like you're the only administrator here, so you can go first.
Good evening. I want to recognize that our summer theater program started today. Mrs. Rosado had a great turnout for our first ever summer theater here at PAC. Everyone in attendance was excited about this new learning opportunity and really enjoyed their first day. The second thing I want to talk about is our district leadership team worked really hard last school year and came up with our professional development for the upcoming year. Our focus will be on adult social and emotional learning. More specifically, we'll be looking at how to make sure we as adults have tools in our bags to promote healthy mental, physical, social, and emotional well-being. To kick off this opportunity, the admin team created a fun spin-off of the Amazing Race to build teamwork, communicate with our stakeholders, give back, and enjoy an all-around fun activity to start our school year. Staff will leave this experiment with quick activities they can do individually or in groups to build their social emotional skills. We've had great community support in this project to this point. We hope to have 12 businesses commit to partnering with us. The businesses we have spoken to so far are graciously letting us use their facilities for this event. Our hope is to have some board members participate as well. And we look forward to building unity in our community as staff races around Pocahontas on August 18th.
That's awesome, Tracy. Is this on? Can you guys hear me? With the community part of it, does it reach out to the other towns in our district, or is it just Pocahontas?
Right now, it's just Pocahontas. We struggled with the time constraints to get people to the surrounding communities.
Okay.
But would be be something certainly we could look at
Yeah,
in future years.
sure, I think that'd be great.
Also.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Joe, do you have anything to share with what's going well?
I'd like to just acknowledge our summer crews. The high school classrooms are complete to my knowledge as far as getting ready for next year, and they're currently over at the elementary, getting those classrooms prepared as well. So we have, Tracy has sent out, Mrs. Carlson, stating that our elementary building hopefully will be closed for the next 2 weeks while staff are in waxing floors, cleaning, so that we don't inadvertently have people step through wet wax, which creates some problems later if it hasn't set up enough.
That's good. That seems like it's ahead of schedule. Good to hear. Next, we have Megan Benson, and Megan is going to talk to us about ELL. And Joe, can you tell me what ELL stands for?
English language learner.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have just a little handout for you, and I'll try to make this quick, but I enjoy talking about ELL, so. So the first thing up at the top, it talks about a LOUD plan, which is a civil rights requirement for all school districts to have regardless of their English learner student enrollment. Our plan was adopted in 2013, and it states that we will provide English learners with language and cultural instruction in a non-threatening, welcoming environment and guidance in English language fluency in order to obtain academic and social achievement. I am currently revising it because it's pretty much our plan of how are we going to help our English learners. Not a lot is changing. I'm changing some wording and so on and within that, and I will make sure when that is done that it will be shared with you at a meeting in the fall so that you know what it is or can see what it is as well. Next is our numbers of EL students from 2017-18 school year to this past current school year. As you can see, those numbers have significantly risen. Throughout the year, they also fluctuate due to move in and move outs. You may wonder how a student is identified as an English learner. When a new student enrolls, they fill out a home language survey. And if they mark a language other than English on there, then Joni or Christy notify me and I give them the ELPA 21, which is English Language Proficiency Assessment for the 21st century, screener, which tests how well they can read, write, speak, and listen in English. A lot of our our students can be students who don't speak English, so that's not their first language. When they do this, I tell them, try your best because the test is in English. Just do your best. If you don't understand, skip the question or just say, I don't know. And I tell them that through Google Translate because I don't know Spanish. And then after they take that, their score determines on if they receive services. So every year as well, our current EL students and any new students, I send a letter home letting parents know that they will be receiving services from myself. And then in the spring, they will take a summative assessment of the ELPA 21. Again, all in English. And as you can see there, the past 2 years, we have our numbers of students meeting the emerging level, progressing level, and proficient level. Our program here at PAC is a pull-out small group program. We meet almost every day for 15 to 20 minutes, except for our high school level 1s and level 2s, which would be in the emerging column. They meet for 43 minutes with me as a class period. And then once a student reaches proficiency, they're exited from our EL program and then monitored for 2 years. At that time, within those 2 years, if at any point we see that a student needs to re-enter the program, they can. So I am always learning about English learners. I have a huge community on Facebook and Twitter, that if a teacher comes to me with a question and I don't know, I go right to Facebook to one of those groups and I get a response. So it's kind of great there that, and it's all over the US that we have this. I've attended multiple webinars, conferences, Prairie Lake network meetings, and from those that I have learned with that, I send out monthly emails to our staff to share those tips and strategies. And that was a new thing this year for me to do. And it was very well received by our staff, receiving those tips and strategies throughout the year. The next 3 pages in your handout, that first one is a family guide. This is what I send to parents before they take the summative test in February. And any of these the handouts that I gave you, I send in English and Spanish to our families. So they do know what is being given to them. The next one is what I send with the test results. So it describes the emerging, progressing, and proficient. And that last page is a parent guide that will show, it gives us a piece down at the bottom, like what the score report looks like and how they can read that. And so all of those papers, including the student score report that I received in May, they receive in Spanish, because Spanish is our language that is here in the district. So that is all I have for you.
Very good.
Thank you.
If you could show the audience, you're very prepared. She even has a ELL t-shirt. Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Megan.
Okay, we're gonna move into public communication with the board. And we have 7 persons who would like to speak, and we have 20 minutes allotted, so we're gonna allow 2 minutes and 45 seconds roughly. So keep that in mind when you're speaking. And we're gonna begin with Scott Holland, and Scott is gonna speak to us about the Pomeroy building.
Hi, yeah, I'm Scott Holland, Pomeroy. I moved there when I was 5 years old in 1958. At that time, there were actually 3 schools in Pomeroy, 2 private schools and the public school. My folks were Catholic, so I went to the Catholic school. I graduated in 1967. There were 4 in my class. I was toward the top of my class. Both school buildings are gone now. And I really don't even know when it happened. Was it a good idea? Was it a bad idea? There's not a thing we can do about that. It's in the past, you just can't change the past. I then went to Pomeroy High School, PHS. I graduated in 1971. There were 39 in my class. Not sure where I was in that level. I have great memories of Pomeroy School. One nice thing about a small school is that you not only get to play everything, you almost are required. They want you to play. You can even star in some stuff if you're lucky. Same way with music, theater. We had Christmas operettas, all that kind of thing, plays. Then my kids graduated from Pomeroy Palmer. They went through all the glory days of basketball in the 90s. That's to take nothing away from the incomparable Dustin Thompson and his championship days in the early 2000s. Was it 2001 and 2, Dustin?
That was a long time ago, I don't
Okay, a
remember.
long time ago. There are plenty of Pomeroy people whose roots are far deeper than my 65-year-old ones. I just talked to someone, they said that there are 6 generations of people that went to the Pomeroy school. So what's my point? My point is that there were lots of wonderful achievements experienced in the Pomeroy school building. And if you're not from Pomeroy, I get it. I don't expect you to feel the same way I do about that building and the experience that we Pomeroy folks had there. But we've elected you school board members here at PAC, and we have to trust you to represent us because you have control over our building. You might not think of it that way. Please be kind enough and wise enough to give us time to explore our options before deciding to destroy the legacy that that school building represents to me and lots of other people from Pomeroy. Can the building be saved? Is it worth what it would cost if we can save it? I don't know. And neither do you. I have made
Yeah, if you can finish up, you know, as quick as you can, Scott,
Okay.
please.
I have made lots of foolish decisions in my life, and they have always cost me, sometimes dearly. I've made a few wise ones, and they've always blessed me. I pray that you guys will make a wise decision, and I thank you for representing us. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next, we have Renee Olson to speak about the Pomeroy building.
Yes, I'm Renee Olson from the Ware area, and I spend a lot of time visiting my family down in Pomeroy. I spent 13 years there as a student, and I very much appreciate the building. I also like historic preservation, and I just want to point out, I visited the National Trust for Historic Preservation site, and they did point out that buildings built before World War II are more durable. They built them to last versus ones built after World War II. And I just point out that the courthouse that's just celebrating the 100th anniversary would be a pre-World War II building, as is the Pomeroy School, which I think is around 1937. And it's, they built them beautifully. They built them to last. They built them with rich architectural features, and they were built by craftsmen that you just can't find today. So I would hate to see the building destroyed. I think it can be repurposed, and it has a uniqueness that the community needs to retain its identity, I think. And so we are asking the board just to give us more time to reflect on this. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. And next, we have Dave Olson to speak about the Pomeroy building as well.
I would like to say thank you to the,
You're okay. You can hang on to that if you'd like to.
thank you to the board and the administration for letting me share in this process of oversight and administration. I have a background in landscape architecture, was part of a collaborative firm in Ames, Des Moines, with civil engineers and architects, landscape architects. So my pitch for the building is that it is a beautiful architectural design. I noticed the new sloping roof that they put on it at one point in the administration, and it integrates so beautifully into the existing structure, and it creates a solidness. Really like the building from an aesthetic point of view, from a structural point of view. I would like to make a pitch for community master plan opportunity. During my work in Ames, Des Moines, we did some master planning for Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Even the Chicago Boulevard's strange projects for a small place in Ames, Iowa. But I would love for the community of Pomeroy to have an opportunity to develop their master plan using the building as an infrastructure and opportunity to draw younger generation people into Northwest Iowa, into the rural areas. I think it has many opportunities economically, and apart from economics, I think, lifestyle opportunities that would really draw people to a small community. Master plan would, I feel, take another 9 months, so that's my appeal. If you have the opportunity, I would appeal for another 9 months for this community to explore the opportunities and the options to develop this building as a major resource for their community. I'm excited about bringing vitality to all the small towns in rural Iowa. When you're building greater vitality in these small towns, it's creating a much stronger base for the Pocahontas area community schools. So on that basis, I would like to make my appeal for another 9 months. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dave. Next, we have Mary Clancy, and she's going to also speak about the Pomeroy building.
Good evening. As Mr. Brady indicated, my name is Mary Clancy and I call Pomeroy home. In the last 3 months, there have been countless hours of effort by volunteers in exploring options for the school building. This handout that I'm going to give you is a quick summary of those efforts. Just in the past 2 weeks, more options were surfaced, but there was no time to investigate. Three months simply is not enough time to find the right resources and gather all of the facts. Other communities have been allowed up to 12 months to develop a comprehensive plan of action for vacated buildings. Tonight, you will hear a proposal from the Pomeroy City Council regarding school property. In my opinion, the proposal is based upon the very narrow parameters that you, the board, have put in place. Would you buy a house sight unseen with no idea of the layout? Of course not. That's illogical. In essence, what you have asked the town of Pomeroy to do is to find a developer that will invest in the building sight unseen. By limiting access to the building and withholding the blueprints, you have stifled the efforts of many of your constituents. Many of us believe there is a win-win scenario to be found, an opportunity for Pomeroy to repurpose a useful building and save the school district $1 million. Perhaps there is a plan where the district can still use some of the facilities for a fraction of the cost. We simply need more time to explore all options. I would like to respectfully ask for additional time to find that win-win scenario. I would like to ask the board to please provide access to the building and the release of an approved abridged version of the blueprints. Potential developers need something. Anything is better than nothing. These simple requests can truly have a positive impact. I also think this board needs to be reminded that as the superintendent, Mr. Kramer works for you. He is your guide, but you, the board, determine the destination and the future of the school district. Successful people build each other up, they motivate, they inspire, they work together. Unsuccessful people have no sense of cooperation, blame, and complaining. Which type of person do you want to be as an individual and as a board? If you allow us additional time to develop a plan, you too will have additional time to consider ways to spend that extra $1 million to improve the school district. Please cooperate with those of us who would like to find a win-win scenario. Thank you.
Next, we have Eric Curtis, and he's going to speak to us about requesting more time for the building.
Good evening. My name is Eric Curtis of Pomeroy. In the last 3 months, I've seen the Pomeroy community come together to fight for a cause to find a better outcome for the Pomeroy school building rather than demolition. It wasn't easy for the Pomeroy community to come up with solutions in the time they were given, but they managed to narrow the solutions to 5 options. After a town hall discussion and a vote by those in attendance, idea number 5, which states that 3 months is not enough time to investigate all options, was chosen. Specifically, Pomeroy is asking for 6 more months with no children in the building so blueprints can be acquired for outside entities to review. Through research, Mayor Lodes found that the cities of Mallard, Sutherland, and Wall Lake were each given more than a year by their school boards to find buyers or solutions for their vacant school buildings. In my opinion, the Pomeroy community has been treated unfairly by this administration. After 9 years of no discussion, discussed Pomeroy facility was put on the February school board meeting agenda. Mayor Lodes created a petition pursuant to Iowa Code 279.8B to give Mary Clancy time to share ideas with the school board regarding the future of the building. The petition resulted in the administration removing public comments from the agenda, something Dustin openly disagreed with. Dustin motioned to allow Clancy to give a full 6-minute speech and Chris seconded. President Birdie, Lance, Dutcher, and Stuglick didn't allow this to happen. All Clancy could share was that she had 2 potential buyers for the building, and they were denied access to the blueprints. Mayor Lodes called out the board for not allowing Mary to share all of her ideas, despite 91 people signing the petition to allow Mary to talk. The discussion was tabled to the March meeting, where Mr. Kramer reiterated he could not share the blueprints for security reasons, and that he had set up times to meet with potential buyers. Mr. Stuglick expressed concerns over why there was someone who doesn't own the building property trying to sell it for them. Dustin reminded the board that Clancy had tried to talk to them, but she wasn't allowed to communicate. The president's opinion was that action needed to be taken fast. Dustin disagreed, stating that they should give potential buyers adequate time to save taxpayers the $1.2 million demolition expense. Dustin then proposed that the school facility committee meet with Pomeroy representatives to discuss the solution. The group met for the only time before the April meeting, where discussion of the building began with an exchange between the president and Mr. Kramer. The president stated, have we been approached with any offers? No. Has anyone scheduled the time to visit the facility? No. So there's no reason to believe we have a buyer. Dustin quickly chimed in and said that the facility committee and Pomeroy committee had just met to begin brainstorming ideas. If any action were taken, it would contradict what was discussed at the facility meeting. Zach then inaccurately stated that the facility is taking money from teachers, which isn't true, and pinned the blame on Pomeroy for doing nothing for 9 years.
I'm continuing Eric's speech. Dustin immediately asked if the Pomeroy had 5 months. Zach disagreed, as he said that would bring us to winter. A motion was made and the board agreed to give Pomeroy 3 months to find a solution for the facility. As I stated before, Pomeroy has come up with a few solutions in the 3 months we were given, and ultimately the town needs more time. I do not feel that this administration has been fair as the timeline of events displayed. Please give us a chance to preserve not just the facility, but our community as the school is a major landmark of the town. The building contains half of the gyms in the district and they are not in bad shape. I can't end this speech without thanking the person who gave us a chance, Dustin Thompson. He has been one of the biggest supporters of this district, and I know he would love to be in the softball game right now. Thank you, Dustin, for everything you have done for Pomeroy, this district, and the community.
Thank you, Cindy. Next, we have Ben Toma to speak about the Pomeroy building.
Hello. I came in here with a different idea of what I was going to say. Right now, as being a member of the city council, I am not speaking for Pomeroy City Council, but I would like to ask the school board to set up a time with the school board, Mr. Kramer, will meet with Pomeroy City Council and our mayor before making any decisions on what we do with this building. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, thank you all. We are going to move on to business. And we're going to start with a hearing on the proposed resolution to continue instructional support levy. It'll be on page number 17 of our packets. And Joe, if you could lead us into this. We discussed the resolution, the meeting in June, and I understand I need to read the resolution at some point.
Correct. So at this time, if there's public comment regarding the board extension of the instructional support levy, the instructional support levy, as previously indicated, funds approximately $430,000 worth of staff salaries. This was implemented a number of years back at a time when the board was having to consider staff reductions. At that point in time, Pocahontas area was one of a group of school districts that did not have an ISL in place at that time. As of last year, I believe there is only one school district in the state of Iowa that does not have a either voter or board-approved instructional support levy. The difference is if it's voter-approved, it extends for 10 years. Over time, started out with a voter-approved, and the board has opted to go with the board-approved, which is a shorter 5-year period of time. At this time, our current ISL will expire at the end of this school year. An ISL has to be finalized, approved, and processed prior to the district certifying its budget in April. So there is a timeline associated with it, and in that period of time, there's actually, I believe, only 2 periods of time where this could go for a vote if there was a petition to do so. So that's part of the reason why we're here tonight. So, Mr. Birdie, if you've got anyone from the community who would like to speak for or against, this would be the time to do so.
Okay, do we have any public here present that would like to speak for or against the instructional support levy?
I have a question. So
Okay.
you mentioned 2 voting times. Is that for public or is that for the school board?
No, that would be if there was a petition asking for it to go to a vote, there would only be 2 voting periods because the legislature has reduced the number of times a special election can be called.
Any other comments from public present? Just a couple of comments of my own. I did some research on the levy. It looks like it began in 1992, and our school didn't support or didn't ask for the levy until into the 2000s, Joe, is that correct? So it's not something we took advantage of immediately as a district, but it's with funding resources as they are, we definitely need it. If you took $400,000 out of our budget, we would definitely have a real tough time paying salaries. So that's, again, part of the reason why we're here tonight. We did not want to have the possibility of losing out on that. Last chance for any other comments for or against.
Paul, do you know how much you're asking for in the levy?
Is there a percentage, Joe, or is it just a standard?
It is a maximum, I believe, of 10% not to exceed. The state does not fund what used to be their portion of it. So there used to be a backfill. So it's actually less than 10%, but the code, the way it's written, still says up to 10%.
Looks like on page 20 of our packets, it does say that will not exceed 10%. And I'll get to read that possibly here later.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we're going to move on to the next bullet, which is to discuss and approve the resolution to continue participation in the support program. So my assumption is we need a motion to approve, and then I read the resolution.
Do we have discussion first?
Sure, certainly can.
Sure.
There should be a motion and then it would go to discussion. A motion second and then discussion to approve the resolution as submitted. And then I would recommend for Paul to actually read it since everyone in attendance does not have it in front of them.
I would make the motion to approve the ISL as written, with discussion before the vote.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Nick to approve the instructional support levy resolution. And now it's the time to have discussion.
What I wanted to ask amongst the board, can everybody hear me okay? trying to speak up a little. The percentage, maximum 10%, we are already in this program. We've been in this program for 15 or so years. We're not asking for an additional increase in tax revenue or anything else. It's just continuing the current program. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not an increase in taxes, so I know the public likes to hear that, so. Other comments or discussion?
In all of these funds, I might just a question, all of these funds that we take from this monies goes towards teachers' salaries?
We have used these for years to backfill salaries for staff,
Okay,
for teachers in particular.
thanks.
Other discussion? If not, we're gonna move towards acting on the motion. Or is this a roll?
Well, this is where you read it first. and
Okay,
then go
excuse
to
me.
roll call.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and read the resolution. And this is gonna take some time. The Board of Directors of the Pocahontas Area Community School District in the counties of Pocahontas, Calhoun, Palo Alto, State of Iowa met on today's date, which would be July the 10th, in the high school commons, 205 First Avenue Southwest, Pocahontas, Iowa, at 7 p.m. There were present President Birdie in the chair and the following named board members, which would be Jolene Dutcher, Tony Halligan, Nick Lenz, Mike Crossgrove, and Dustin Thompson. The president announced that this is the time, place, and date to hold a hearing on the proposed resolution to continue participation in the instructional support program. The following persons appeared. List the persons who appeared or attach the minutes of the hearing, and we'll attach the minutes of the hearing. The president declared the hearing closed. Director introduced the following resolution, moved its adoption. Director seconded the motion to adopt. The roll call was called, and we'll get to that. The president declared the resolution adopted as follows. Resolution to continue participation in the instructional support program. Whereas the Board of Directors has determined that to continue the current level of services and to fund the ongoing programs of the school district, continuation of participation in the instructional support program for a period of 5 years is necessary and in the best interest of the district and its residents and students. And whereas the Board of Directors has given consideration to continued participation in the instructional support program as provided in sections 257.18 through 257.21 Code of Iowa, and whereas the board has published notice of the time and place of the public hearing on the resolution, and whereas a hearing has been held upon the proposal to continue participation in the instructional support program and any objections overruled. Now, therefore, it is resolved, the Board of Directors determines that it is consistent with the 5-year finance plan to fund the ongoing programs and services of the school district, and it is in the best interest of the school district to continue participation in an instructional support program as provided in sections 257.18 through 257.21 Code of Iowa, and to provide additional funding therefore for a period of 5 years commencing with the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. The additional funding for the instructional support program for a budget year will be determined annually and will not exceed 10% of the total regular program district cost for the budget year and monies received under 257.14 Code of Iowa as budget adjustment for the budget year. Number 3, monies received by the district for the instructional support program may be used for any general purpose. Number 4, the instructional support program shall be funded by instructional support state aid and a combination of instructional support property tax levied annually upon the taxable property within the school district, commencing with the levy of property taxes for collection in the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, and an instructional support income surtax imposed annually. The percent of income surtax to be determined by the board for each budget year to be imposed upon the state individual income tax of each individual income tax payer resident in the school district on December 31st, 2024, and each year thereafter. Number 5, unless within 28 days following the adoption of this resolution, the secretary of the board receives a petition containing the signatures of eligible electors equal in number to not less than 100 or 30% of the number of voters at the last preceding regular school election, whichever is greater, asking that an election be called to approve or disapprove this action of the board adopting the instructional support program. This action of the board is final, and the secretary is authorized and directed to certify a copy of this resolution to the Department of Management. In the event of a petition containing the required number of signatures is filed with the secretary of the board within 28 days of the adoption of this resolution, the president shall call a meeting of the board to consider rescission of this resolution or to direct the county commissioner of elections to submit the following question to the qualified electors of the school district at a special election. If the board determines to submit the question to the electors, the proposition is to be submitted shall be as follows. Shall the board of directors of the Pocahontas Area Community School District in the counties of Pocahontas, Calhoun, Palo Alto, state of Iowa be authorized for a period of 5 years to continue to levy and impose an instructional support tax in an amount after taking into consideration instructional support state aid of not exceeding 10% of the total of the regular program district costs for the budget year and monies received under section 257.14 Code of Iowa as a budget adjustment in the budget year and be authorized annually in combination as determined by the board to levy an instructional support property tax upon all the taxable property within the school district, commencing with the levy of property taxes for collection in the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, and to impose an instructional support income surtax upon the state individual income tax of each individual income tax payer resident of the school district on December 31st for each calendar year commencing with calendar year 2024 and each year thereafter, the percent of income surtax to be determined by the board for each fiscal year to be used for any general fund purpose, passed and approved this 10th day of July 2023. So that is the resolution before us. And is this one we need a roll call vote for? So Karen, if you could administer that, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Billy,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. So if it's okay with the rest of the board, do we have our, what's the name of the? The Donovan Group representative, is he present now, Joe?
Yes.
If it's okay with the rest of the board, we'll move him up on the agenda so he does not need to sit through the remaining part of our agenda.
Jerry, are you able to hear us?
I am.
And before Jerry gets started, what we are looking at here is Jerry works for the Donovan Group out of Storm Lake, Iowa, correct?
Yes.
And what we are.
I'm in Cedar Falls, Iowa, but I'm a Storm Lake grad.
Okay, thank you. What we are looking at, and basically at this point in time, we're exploring the possibility. So we've invited Jerry with the Donovan Group to talk to us about a service that's provided by the Donovan Group to help with PR activities for the school district. We as a board, we've listened to the public about maybe some complaints and challenges we've had with public relations and communication with the board and from the superintendent and from the district as a whole. So by putting this on the agenda, we thought we would get some information from the Donovan Group about the services they may offer that would help with some of the public communication and public relation challenges that we have. And this does not mean we have to make a decision on this service that can be provided to the district, but it's something for us to consider. In my opinion, it's probably something we should table to the next meeting and maybe do a little bit of soul searching and thinking, between this meeting and the next meeting, and then possibly make a decision at the next meeting. But with that, Jerry, I'm going to let you speak to us as a board and provide us a summary of what your business does and answer some questions that we may have. So welcome, Jerry.
Well, thank you for having me. And if my audio is not coming through cleanly, just wave your hands. Let me know if I need to start over or restate anything.
Are we good?
I
think we hear you, Jerry, so I think you can continue on.
Okay. I spent 18 years in broadcasting as a news anchor before I got into this business with the Donovan Group. And one thing that I learned that became very evident as a journalist in working in Sioux City and Waterloo and other places is that when we would hear from schools, whether it be good news or something that they had to report because there was an unfortunate situation, it almost always was a larger school district. And I didn't understand that until I started asking questions and come to find out that most small to mid-sized school districts did not have their own internal communications department. And I felt that that was probably a need for schools to have because to me, there is nothing that really separates Pocahontas from West Des Moines Valley. You all have needs, you all have great stories to tell, but there just was not a vehicle for smaller schools to be able to tell that story. And so I decided to leave television 5 years ago and joined with the Donovan Group, which is out of Wisconsin, which was formed 15 years ago to support school districts in their bond campaigns, whenever they'd have a bond issue, and with crisis communications. And I encourage the Donovan Group to look at this model coming to Iowa to be able to work with smaller school districts that did not have their own way of communicating externally. And since then, it's been a fairly successful model. We're now working with 35 schools, about the size of Pocahontas throughout the state of Iowa, working with them and supporting them with their day-to-day communications. And we feel like we rival the Iowa cities and the Des Moines and the Cedar Rapids and Sioux City schools really well because it's not just me. There is a team of anywhere from 10 to 15 different experts in various fields of communications that support these smaller schools on a day-to-day basis with everything from graphic design, marketing, teacher recruitment, website review, social media, video, campaigns, flyers, you name it in a communications platform, and we are able to create something and deliver it. And so that's really in a nutshell what it is that we're doing. We do support schools that are larger in Iowa that have very specific projects, for instance, bond votes. But largely the work that we do on a day-to-day basis is with schools your size. I think to be very clear about the why, we feel like it's important that schools like Pocahontas are telling the real story of what it is that they are doing on a day-to-day basis. And that the only time that the media or your community hears about you isn't just with the challenges, but it's with the real thing that's happening as we pull back the curtain on the third grade classroom and the high school chemistry lab, and being able to really give credit where credit is due, not to say that there aren't challenges that we report, but that we do help to strike a balance that we feel tells the true story of what's happening in your school.
Jerry, I have a question, I guess. Could you summarize for us what types of communication could your business offer for us? Is it anywhere from social media to local newspaper articles, or we subscribe to the Remind system? That it's basically a text system that we use to put messages out quickly to parents and students, et cetera. Trying to think of other forms of communication. Mailings, not used very often, but could you kind of summarize what types of communications you guys provide?
So on a very small scale, day-to-day would be your social media content, your text messages for Remind, all the way up to annual reports. That would be, glossy, something that you could mail, that you could provide we really recommend having marketing materials, because we're in a fight, in a competition for students, having marketing materials that we create for you, everything from one-pagers to these annual reports on display at a Tuesday night basketball game or a Thursday night volleyball game, because we know that when Pocahontas hosts somebody, anywhere from 20 to 30% of your foot traffic is coming in from another school. And that's a tremendous opportunity, because you still have a sit and get audience at events to be able to utilize print materials to get the story, the proper story out that might not be happening on a day-to-day basis. And really, you're also getting to an audience that might not be on social media as well. So that's just an example of what we do. Another example would be the Remind that you talked about right there. This spring, a superintendent in Eastern Iowa at a district about the size of Pocahontas called me as he was on his way to a school bus accident. And he said, I don't know what's happened. I'm getting out to the scene, but I'm going to be unable to get to a computer to send anything out. Can you, once I have the details, write something? I'll need a release for the news media. I'll need a social media post, and I'll need something to send out on Remind, and have that ready and send to my secretary to be able to distribute. And can you post to social media and send to the media? Well, when that happens in a crisis situation, we put ourselves on the clock. After that phone call, I was back to him in 7 minutes with communications that we were able to distribute. And you do that because you want to get ahead of the story, because you know that with social media nowadays, everybody else is out there, and many of them are witnesses and some are not. But what we're trying to do is to tell the story and maybe take credit for it. And sometimes what happens is the facts get twisted. And so as quickly as we can get out with the narrative, you are far more in control of that situation. And to be honest, that can be good news too. It doesn't always have to be a crisis. We really believe it's important to make good news urgent, because you don't want it to sit on the shelf. One of the phrases that we use is don't let the good gather dust, because if you do, something else will come up and you'll forget about it. 2 or 3 days later, it's old news. And so it's very important to get good news out as quickly as possible as well.
Jerry, this is Dustin Thompson.
Hi, Dustin.
Hi there. I've got a question regarding how you get your information. With all the activities going on from FFA to musicals, sports, school activities, whether it be, trying to think what, we used to have them all the time where everybody got in the gym and someone came and spoke. I can't remember what those are. Not a pep rally, but yeah, like DARE or something like that. How do you get your information? Where do you get your pictures and all that?
Yeah, it's very important that we have staff buy-in and to set up a network of staff members, not named Superintendent Kramer, that are in contact with me on a daily basis to be able to promote their programs. And I'm a big proponent. I played basketball and baseball, but I also ran track and cross country at Storm Lake. And so some of the sports that did not necessarily have all of the eyeballs. I'm a big proponent of doing what we can to balance as much as we can all of the activities. And so I really encourage coaches and activity sponsors they all have my cell phone, to text me, for instance, on a Saturday after district speech. Give me the results, give me a photo, and we'll get that out the door that night. We work 7 days a week. We have staff that work around the clock on these kinds of things. So again, it just goes back to don't let the good gather dust. But it is a matter of staff have to want this kind of service and this immediate service with polished material to be able to get out the door. I would tell you if you wanted an example of what it is that we do, check out the Dyke New Hartford Facebook page. That's a pretty good example of a staff that has really bought in and that they are in contact with us daily about getting material out the door. Now we're kind of in a little bit of a lull because their baseball and softball teams just were knocked out of the tournament. But if you go back through the page, you'll be able to see what kinds of things the Pocahontas would be able to get with this.
Jerry, when you're talking about public relations for a program, can you tell us, for example, breakdown 3, give me how you would advertise for a science class or a big project we're doing in some form of tech there, something we're doing in industrial arts, tie in business with the community, and a sports program. You kind of already laid out the sports program, but compare and contrast how you would help us market, advertise, and get community engagement in the 3 areas. And in particular, what I'm looking for is how do you help get more students involved in these different programs?
Well, I think first of all, it's through testimonials of those who have had success in those programs. And so are we able to have either written or visual anecdotes from kids who have succeeded? If you're wanting to drive up the numbers and enrollment in certain activities or programs, it's best to hear from those who had great success at it. But one thing that we really encourage staff members to do is to be able to take photos and little videos. And I work with teachers that at the end of a unit, say like it's Friday afternoon, they put the camera on themselves and for 30 seconds, they give a recap of what that unit was about. They send me a couple of photos and then we create a polished video with graphics and music and send it out the door. And so there have been times that those 30 to 45 second videos get 5,000 views on Facebook. And that's very little effort to really maximize the number of eyeballs on a program like industrial tech that would not have had it otherwise if we just didn't take this extra step. Because we all have phones. Most of us know how to create, turn it on and record and just talk for a little bit about the unit. That's all you need. You don't have to really reinvent the wheel or be super academic about it because you're trying to reach an entire community about what's happening in your classroom. But just some nuts and bolts of what you're doing and show kids that are engaged, and that will get the point across.
Dustin here again, taking a little misdirection here. Have you had a school use your service and no one supported it and it had failed? Can you tell me about that or what had happened, if it has happened?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I missed that. A school that did what?
where they have bought into the Donovan group and say the teachers didn't support? Has there been a time where this process has failed?
Looking for an
Well,
example
knock
of
on
which-
wood, I have not lost an Iowa school yet in 5 years.
Okay.
The only Iowa schools that have moved away from the Donovan group have been because they signed up for a one-off project. So something like a bond vote. And so once that project had run its course, then we parted ways. But for ongoing communication services, we have renewed every year with all of our schools. Now, there have been some challenges where staff have not bought in initially. And how I handle that or try to combat that is meeting with them in person. And so if you have Wednesday Professional Development Day or something like that, I come to put a face to the name and provide a 10 to 15 minute presentation and show them examples of how this can work. And the 2 or 3 times that we've had, it's been a struggle. Meeting in person has really helped to kind of stir the pot and get things moving.
Thank you.
This is Mike.
Because that can happen. I totally get it.
I was just wondering, do you guys just charge an annual fee then, or monthly?
It's a monthly flat fee. There are no overages. So really you use us as much as you want. And it is an annual agreement. However, we only want to be with you if you're satisfied, and because the public school communications is our only business. And so if we're not satisfying you, we're not doing a good job. And so we typically have a probationary period for the first 3 or 4 months. If you don't feel like you're getting value out of it, you can walk away. And then for that first year agreement.
Thank you.
When you offer a service to a district, Jerry, are there different levels? Or I know you mentioned like if you're on a project for a bond referendum type of situation, what if it's just the school wants you for all general communication? Is there just one package that you offer, or is it?
Yeah, it's really the kitchen sink package, and the fee doesn't change.
Okay.
So we really encourage schools to maximize it.
Okay.
Now, you might come to me and say, we only want to create marketing content to recruit teachers. That's a specific project. Then I would give you a separate price for that, but that just hasn't happened yet, so I haven't really mulled that over.
That was a great lead into my next question. What do you do for recruiting efforts, for recruiting staff?
Yeah, what we have found works best is to have printed material and or social media content that's way different than the advertisements that you would see on Teach Iowa. So we believe it's about creating something that's visual and that sells the community and not just the school district. Because if I'm going to come teach, it's about the amenities of Pocahontas, what you have to offer, living in an area like that. And so working to be able to find what is great about the entire community and not just the school district, and packaging that into a one-pager that you would print, distribute, provide online, social media, the entire gamut.
Do you have examples that you've worked with amongst the 35 schools that you can connect us with a couple board members for reference?
Absolutely. I can send what we've created to Superintendent Kramer.
You mentioned that you have 35 schools that now use your services. Is that number growing?
It is, yes. I would say 2 years ago, that number was probably 15. We are growing to the point that we have to hire, and we have hired a number of people to support us in Iowa. I have a videographer who's in Sioux City. I have a videographer who's in Storm Lake, and I have a communication specialist who's in Storm Lake. And so there are 3 support staff that are in Western Iowa alone that I did not have 2 years ago.
Okay. And when did you begin offering the service?
5 years ago.
Okay.
I saw translation services in your listing. Would you offer multilingual services for everything that we publish and communicate with the public on?
Yeah, I would say by and large, the communications that we translate are anything from 2 or 3 pages on down. That's really typical. If we get into something that is a huge document to translate, that's where we might have to talk about, I don't know that we're equipped to deal with that. But if it's a parent letter or a, 1-page teacher recruitment or a fundraiser for something, yes, absolutely, that everything is built into that flat fee.
Last question I have, and I'm sure you have some examples. Community unity of consolidated schools. How do you help us all see this school as our school?
What is the challenge that I hate to answer a question with a question, but explain some of the challenges that you're facing that would give me a better idea.
One of the challenges we're going to talk about later today is a facility in one of the communities of our school district, and how we as a board can help serve them, and frankly, listening to their city council meeting the other day, that there's a lot of separation still. We don't see us as a we. We're still a separated 2 groups. It's that other group up there north of us is kind of, if you see that going on amongst the different communities of your school district, how would the Donovan group help us bring people together?
Yeah, it's about explaining the value of the public school district to every community that you serve. And to be able to do that, we need to hear from people who live in those communities who can speak to what that value means. And so there's a recruitment pitch that goes into that, and being able to find graduate business leaders, parents, those who are not tied to the school district through a paycheck, that are willing to step out and stand up and represent the school district and say, I am proud of what Pocahontas does on a day-to-day basis, and this is why. And you get that information out the door, and before you know it, there can become kind of a Pied Piper momentum to it, and people like to follow those who are leading a positive message. And it's just about recruiting those that are out there that might not have been asked to speak on your behalf.
I guess I lied. I have another question. You do surveys.
Yep.
And so something like this, and you'd mentioned in your answer, getting the voice of the different communities. Tell us a little bit about what surveys you would do and how that would go out to the different communities, teachers, students. Who are you surveying? What are you surveying?
We survey everything from facility planning to be able to get a sense of what the community wants moving forward and what kind of options would be palatable for them, to them financially, to communications needs. How would you like the school district to communicate with you moving forward? To educational needs. All kinds of, really, we run the full spectrum on the kinds of surveys that we can engineer. We host the surveys. We would create the communication marketing material for those surveys. We do recommend mailing some kind of a postcard that would have a link to the survey, so that goes out, so you are able to cast the widest net to reach the highest number of people. Printing surveys, having them available at local hangouts, Casey's, those kinds of places, grocery stores, and just making sure, because a survey is only as good as your participation rate. And so how can we drive and maximize the highest number of people who are able to weigh in with their voice is oftentimes far more important than the actual question that you're asking.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jerry?
this were to pass tonight, Jerry, how soon would you be able to start on?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Good answer.
We really have a template in place, and we call it a communication roadmap that we're able to put together very quickly, that we've used in the past, that we have a sense of these are the kinds of things that you would like to communicate right away. And I would only need to have a meeting or two with building leadership, Superintendent Kramer, to be able to understand the needs and how to address those. And then we would move forward with a roadmap that would be able to show you, here are the deliverables that we would create in the first few months. This is what they would look like. These are the dates that they would go out, so that you would be able to hold our feet to the fire. And usually after the first 3 or 4 months, then that roadmap goes away, because then we're, the ball is rolling down the hill. We've got momentum, and we're able to just be, in essence, a communications department in your building, because that's how it feels.
Any other questions for Jerry? If not, we really appreciate your being with us tonight and providing us information on the services that your business offers. So thanks again, Jerry.
Thank you for having me. I'll be sure to get those examples of deliverables to Superintendent Kramer, and I hope to hear from everyone. And if we have the opportunity to work together, we will be very grateful, and we'll do a great job.
Very good.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the dominant group, we have, I'd like to make a motion for discussion about that group and about the forming of a PR committee to investigate that.
I'll second that.
I guess I got a little question about the PR group. Something that meets between meeting is what you're thinking?
I'm suggesting, and I'll define why I'm suggesting that, but I am suggesting a subcommittee, just like the building committee, just like the negotiation committee with the teacher, that this has become our largest ongoing issue with the community is our PR function. That the state of the world today for schools in the US, if you really look at what's out there, we're not in that bad a shape. We're really doing pretty well, but we have some small negative things that our community's focused on, that our parents are focused on, that Facebook gets focused on. We don't put the positive things out there. If we talk about what Jerry was just talking about, that's not what we're doing. We're highlighting the negatives. We have a good school. We have a good administration. In doing my homework coming into this, I did, and I asked him if I could share some of this, but I talked about Joe with people, found out what our superintendent is, found out where our board's at. I think the public would be surprised to know that his peers across different administrations across the state view him very highly. They look at him on a scale of 9 to 10. And the board itself, our review of him on a scale of 1 to 10 is probably about an 8. And there's a couple areas that are correctly identified as communication, some other things that we're trying to work on. And when I asked Joe what he felt his rating is with the public, he gave the exact same number I did, which is 4 or 5. Less than half, not where we need to be. And the reasons for that, lots of reasons for that, but one of our primary board functions is the role of the community, getting out and interpreting that, understanding it, bringing it back to the board. The public right now looks at board engagement and board philosophy. They're concerned with our communication and our transparency of intent in action, regardless of what issue it is that we're talking about. Whether it's building usage, personnel complaints, various allegations of any nature, turnover and retention, hiring practices, athletics engagement, some program success or not success. These can be real or perceived issues, but they matter to the people involved. They're very emotional and they carry a lot of weight. And that weight has resulted in our public image being pulled down. that has an impact on our staff retention. That has an impact on our recruiting. That has an impact on open enrollment, kids who are going other places because they don't like what's going on because the right messaging and communication isn't there, that we're not working together the way we want to. And I appreciate that Joe has brought in the Donovan group to talk to. We have an opportunity, and that's why I believe that if public relations is our number one problem, the board needs a subcommittee who can work on that between meetings, partner with Joe, partner with the different communities that are involved, help us carry those core values and mission statements and deliver on our responsibilities.
If we in fact begin a public communications committee, I'm just trying to visualize this. With our other committees, we have the collective bargaining committee, we have the property and grounds committee. Is that it? Those are the two committees I can think of.
You know, the sharing committee too, but that one hasn't been active now for a number of years.
I'm just trying to visualize, do we have to put together, they're not really bylaws, are they?
No, that's just, it's formation of a board committee, basically. As a general rule, you decide as a board who wants to represent. All your committees, except for collective bargaining, are below what would be mandated for publications and everything else. So you're typically 2 to 3 people on those committees. Notes
And
are
is there a
generally,
reason for that, Joe? The 2 to 3 is to
so you don't have a quorum.
avoid the quorum rule.
Yep.
Okay.
That way you can meet, have your meetings without having to worry about basically the pre-publication, the set agenda, because for most of those meetings, you're freely talking about things that you're hoping for or considering or going to recommend to the larger board group.
Mostly it will become an advisory committee to the larger board group or to the areas that the board collectively decides we have a public image problem on X. We need to, within our existing board policies, advise on X and help deliver a community-driven result.
And this is something we've talked about in the past. I think we talked about forming an engagement committee. It didn't come to fruition. It was talked about. It's very similar to what we're proposing. What's the rest of the board's, any comments? Discussion? Or discussion?
I
think it could be real benefit.
I think it would be an asset.
Nick, any comments?
I agree. The more communication we have, the better we're gonna be overall.
I don't see an issue with it. I mean, I think we've done some of these things, maybe not successfully, and maybe this is the reason to form a committee, to become more successful at the communications and the, this committee and the potential of the Donovan group maybe is a start. Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. We have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Dustin, correct?
Yeah.
To form a public relations committee made up of board members. And part of your motion was to explore the possibility of using the services of the Donovan group, correct?
Yes, it is, and just so I can make sure that there's full disclosure for everybody, I believe that this same committee should have some involvement in the Pomeroy activities that are going to come up later on the agenda. And there are also some other critical hires that are coming up. In particular, the industrial arts position, and this is because that position has an opportunity to tie some certain things to the community for kids who are not going down a 4-year path. They're going to graduate, they want to be employed locally. The PR committee can work with local businesses, local ag tech, help understand what it is, what we'd be looking for in industrial arts, and then also what we're recruiting for there. So I believe the PR committee should be in that. And then there's a couple key coaching hires that, and we'll come up to this later in the agenda, if we, there are a few coaching positions that the PR committee should have some advisory actions with the AD before his hiring practices. Not in the hiring practice, but this is what we're looking for the public relations of that athletic or that sport or mock trial, whatever it is, whatever program it is, our public relations committee will be seeking some of that. And part of what I would encourage that committee to look at is how the public's viewing those, how we're putting our image out on Facebook, whether we bring in a consultant or somebody else. It will all be part of what is our image, who are we trying to attract, what are we trying to achieve in the goals for the school district that we have outlined as our primary function as a school district.
Yeah, those are all things that could be looked at without a doubt. The one thing I would want to make clear is that this committee would act a lot like the collective bargaining committee and the property and grounds committee, and you meet and make a presentation to the full board, and then that's when things get adopted.
Right, they have no voting power by the committee by itself, just to present to the full board with ideas, support, gather information from the community, go to the community. Every community we serve, our PR committee representatives should probably be at their city council meeting every other month. Same sort of thing we're doing here. Good news, what's going on at the school? What do you need from the school? Bring that information back to the board. Things like that that just tie the board in more of the community. You're not out voting, you're not out advocating for different things, you're getting information, bringing it back to the board to put that before the public meetings, board's discussion and voting at a future state if any of that evolves.
So we have a motion made by Dustin, or excuse me, a motion made by Tony, seconded by Dustin, to form this committee and do some discovery with this Donovan group. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So probably our next step is to put it on the agenda for the next meeting and then try to formulate who the committee's gonna be made up of.
Do we have to wait for the next meeting to do that?
I prefer to. Number one,
we wait
because
a
we have,
whole month at a critical time to take action. Should not push this off till August to focus on our PR functions.
I agree with that, 100%. We need to act on this as quick as we can.
the only reason I say I would prefer to is because we don't have one of our board members present. But
Sure.
Is there a problem with a special board meeting just to vote that group into existence next week?
That can be done.
There's nothing saying we couldn't do that.
And love to have Chris here for that, yes, absolutely.
So we'll communicate with Chris and try to organize a time for a special meeting potentially. Moving on to the next item on our agenda would be to discuss and approve registration fees. And that would be on page 22 of our packet. Any changes proposed changes from 2022, 2023 school year, Joe?
Yeah, just a couple small ones. I believe we are recommending to increase the annual from 65 to, was it 70 last year, or did we raise it to 70 this year? It was 70, so that one's gonna be the same. So all of your top listings would remain the same till you get down to the meal prices. So under the meal prices, we do have to raise the cost of the adult lunch. That's mandated by the reimbursement rate, so we don't have an option as a district as to what that rate is going to be. It cannot be less than.
$4.85.
Correct, I believe it's 484, but we round to the nearest regular denomination. Student lunch, we're just recommending raising that by 5 cents to from $3.15 to $3.20. Technically, we're supposed to, in time, move toward that reimbursement rate. I know a nickel isn't much, but right now, with families are struggling, I really don't want to raise it much more than that if we don't have to. And breakfast rate would stay the same for adults because the federal reimbursement rate did not change there.
I remember speaking last year on the art and industrial arts fee, $10, fee to be assessed at end of semester if student keeps project. I would like to strike that out of there. I don't want any kid to feel that they can't do an art project and possibly take it home because they'd have to pay a fee of $10. And if they do 10 projects, they'd have to pay $100. Or even more than that. I know it was to recoup some of the art supplies, but.
Yeah, it's not,
You know,
10 I don't believe it's
if
$10 per,
they-
it's 10 total.
No matter how many projects.
Correct.
we did.
Okay.
I believe it is just a
Sure,
one
it's only 10
amount,
total.
it's $10, so
Yeah, the industrial arts.
you
stuff.
did 5
Luke
clay
made a
pots,
lot,
it's not
yeah.
5 times
Luke
that.
made a bunch of stuff, and I think it was $10 for
$10.
the semester.
Is part of that, Joe, so that it can be used as like a display for coming years, or?
No, it's really just if they want to do something to take home.
Okay.
Sometimes those are a little bit more elaborate projects than just a basic project, which requires more material, whether that's more clay or whether that's more wood, whatever it might be for that project. And it hasn't changed off that $10, I don't think, for at least 10 years, maybe more.
It's been $10, I think, since I've been on board.
Is it something that we collect very many dollars, or do you know the answer to that?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't give you a dollar figure.
I just don't see the fee helping us. I mean, if a kid makes a project and it just gets thrown away at the end of the year, there's no sense of collecting a fee on it. So I'd like to move to strike that out of this registration fees.
The way you explain it, it's just assessed if the student keeps it.
Sure.
And takes it home, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it wouldn't be if it's thrown away at the end of the year.
Well, it'll be thrown away either way. At least they can take it home.
Okay.
If there's a $10 fee for using materials, does it matter if they take the project or not? Because if I made a clay project, I used X amount, but whether I thought it was junk and wanted to throw it away or take it home, I still spent X dollars on clay. Would you feel better about it if it was just $10 to participate in art? You get your project at the end of the semester automatically?
Well, I think we pay for that either way as a school district.
Do the kids pay for other separate fees? And this goes back to when I know I used to pay some fees to participate in football for jersey fees.
Sure.
My jersey, stuff like that. Pay to participate to a very limited level. Does any of that exist today, or is it all covered by your standard fees?
A fee just to participate, I do not believe would pass what is an allowable fee.
Okay.
So you can do it if it's an additional fee for keeping a project, but you couldn't just assess a $10 fee for choosing to take an art class or an industrial arts class, for example.
Yeah. So, all right, to that point, if I go to industrial arts and I use $100 worth of materials every week, I don't have to pay anything extra to participate in that. I would agree in striking this.
I move to strike that out of this registration fees.
Okay. Do we have a second for that? And you're okay with this format with exception to that?
Yes.
One.
Yep.
There's no other event that has a fee like that, Joe. It's just this one. Looking at the list, there's nothing else there. There's nowhere else any other fees that we pay for other stuff that would be similar.
And the closest thing you've got would be band supplies, so that would be the purchasing of reeds, for example, for your clarinets, for your saxophones. Could be oil for your brass.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Dustin and seconded by Tony to approve our registration fees as read with the exception to the $10 fee assessed for art and industrial arts for, you guys know what I'm talking about. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And moving on to page 23 through 27 of our agenda, discuss/approve elementary furniture purchases, excuse me.
There was some information provided as to what the teachers in the elementary school had already done for alternatives, for working, trying to use the existing equipment. Could you briefly highlight that for us?
Yes, staff have come at the elementary and asked to upgrade some of the equipment. A number of the desks we're using date back maybe a decade or two, maybe three. So by floor, those staff members came together to identify something common by floor that allows some flexibility to move from room to room as class sizes vary and fluctuate. So you've got one for first floor and another proposal for second floor, which the consensus group has identified.
The consensus group, teachers from the first floor, teachers from the second floor got together. This is what I would like to have voted.
Yes, correct. I'll turn over to Mrs. Carlson for a second. I believe there were one or two teachers on first floor who wanted to keep what they had other than some new chairs. So their chairs are represented in this listing basically with everybody else. But they were satisfied with the tables they were currently using and did not want to change to something else. But they worked most closely with Mrs. Carlson, so I would recommend maybe getting some input from her in terms of the process.
Tracy, do you have additional details to share on that?
Basically, just presented to staff that each floor had to have the same material, the same kind of desks and tables, or eventually they had to be divided so that they said if you had higher sections in one grade than the other, and we don't have enough storage. So they took it on by floor, they met on their own, I was not part of those meetings. Some of the main floor went to the rents and looked at some of their furniture. The upstairs group came together with just a standard table, overall cheap table. They called it to be appropriate, they really valued the baskets or buckets underneath so that they could put the things in there. For that, like Joe said, I think we have two teachers on the bottom floor, they will, one kindergarten did not want to change. The group that were fine with that. They
So this is a collaboration of the entire elementary building.
Of classroom teachers.
Okay.
So just to be clear, like the title teachers and the special education teachers, they are not part of this, it's just for classes.
Okay.
And it's just student desks, not teacher desks.
Okay. So we have in front of us three quotes. With one for $7,132.65 for desks.
I believe that's per class.
That's per classroom, so that would be that figure times 8.
Okay.
These are not competitive quotes of different options. This is a consolidated quote of the best option that we found. Each one of these quotes is applicable before the board. We'd like to buy all of them.
Correct.
This comes out of what fund, Joe?
This is going to be your Pebble capital projects.
So we could multiply the 7132.65 times 8, and then we have the 18,875. Again, multiply that by.
No, that is a total.
That's a total for all classrooms.
Same with the chairs.
Correct.
The whole thing.
Any other discussion?
I see on here, it says that the prices are good through 7/9 of 23. Are they still the same price?
At this point, we believe so, but we'd have to verify.
Okay.
We have a motion to approve. Or any other discussion?
Sorry. Kind of got here, went to the restroom. Is this the desk here? The one with the two kids side by side? I'm sorry, right.
So the lower floor, I believe 4 students could sit at the tables.
Okay.
And the upper floor. Yeah, that was for, that's for the lower floor. No, we have tables, so there's 4 at a table currently on the main floor. Upstairs, there's a variety of different kind of desks. Some of the chairs are attached, some of those kids sit on, the chair actually falls out, but it hurts as well, but it's really low.
Sure.
Other rooms have square desks with, you know, they can put their hands in and store stuff. Some are, they have the table or the chairs attached to the wire basket and everything, so there's a variety of things upstairs. But typically downstairs, there's tables.
Cool. Never seen a desk like that. Table. Kind of nice.
And my assumption is we've targeted the older, falling apart, less quality areas first. Or we're kind of targeting the.
You're targeting your classrooms is what you're doing over at the elementary.
Are we disposing of the old ones just in the trash? Or the ones we're replacing? Or what are we?
More than likely, they would be either disposed of through landfill or made available just sitting out if someone wanted to take
Okay.
one.
All right.
They don't really have much value. Most of them have been welded at some point, and I've got a number in the hall right now that the seats have been welded and someone's broke the weld already again, so.
It's a little long.
Sounds like a bad
Close
welder.
to $83,000.
Get a good industrial art teacher. I like the process you followed. I like the employee involvement. I appreciate the cost reduction that's built into it. I will make a motion that we accept the proposal across the desks and chairs for the 8 classrooms. If I could get this right. The classroom set, eight of those, including the book boxes, and then the desk tables, and then the chairs. That's it.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Jolene to spend 7132.65 times 8 for the chairs and book boxes.
Chairs were all over the price.
Not desks and book boxes.
Just the first one was
Okay.
times 8.
And then the 18,875.90 along with the 16,593. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, discuss/approve offering an additional personal day as a prize for the team that wins the back-to-school unity race activity. Hard to say that.
So principals have come asking if there was a way we could just have for the winning team an opportunity for an extra personal day as an incentive, basically, for this back-to-school activity. To me, it makes sense. It's not a large investment on the part of the board and certainly goes a long way, I believe, in developing that unity amongst the staff and the focusing on wellness.
How many on the teams? Just out of curiosity. There hasn't been
12 teams of 5.
12 teams of 5. Okay. I like it personally.
It's a good idea.
And go back to Dustin's question about this earlier. The teams of 5 would be teachers represented regardless of what other community they're from. Is there any way that we could tie this into the other communities in a way? whether that's getting their businesses to sponsor a booth along the way or anything. I'm definitely on board with the idea of rewarding the teachers and driving that community unity message. Just want to see that spread past Pocahontas to PAC.
I think the potential exists to see if other communities or businesses would like to have something, whether that's a booth or provide something for staff or a booth, whatever it might be.
That's a good one.
The travel side was discussed as far as going to those communities. The issue was whether you can have that many groups go through the activities and have that kind of travel on top of it and fit into the time allotment.
It would be a good one for the PR committee to take on to engage those communities and ask.
Great idea. I like it. Good job, Chris.
It's just that what we did, the elementary building last year did a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
And it was fun, you know, the stories that tell, still make me laugh, but, you know, we wanted to build on that, and it's a big undertaking to have all the activities at each place, and so it was just a starting point for us.
It's a great starting point, and if we want to ask more of you and tie into the other communities, like, we could go to those community city councils on the schools behalf and ask for this.
Sounds like a motion.
I'll make a motion I make a motion to accept the offer, or for the board to offer an additional personal day as a prize to the team that wins the back to school community race activity.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Dustin to approve the offering an additional personal day as a prize for the team that wins the back to school community race activity. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, discuss/approve Rialto lease agreement, page 28. Any changes to our agreement, Joe?
Just dates.
No dollar changes?
No, and I would not recommend changing the dollar. We did have one of those a year or two ago, I believe. But we actually probably used the Rialto less than we did 5 years ago. I'll use National Honor Society as an example. We're now doing that in the gym to allow a little easier facilitation of a larger group. So as a result, the actual total number of days is probably less, not more, so.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mike, seconded by Nick to approve the lease agreement with the Rialto Theater. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, discuss/approve potential modifications to graduation requirements. Is that moving to page number 31?
This is preemptive discussion in the event that we're not able to fill all of our vocational coursework. In the past, you've had one additional vocational strand beyond what is required as a minimum within the state. Currently, you have 2 that are open. We have offered a position on one of those. The other, we have not had an applicant. So that the one that we don't have an applicant currently is FCS. That particular program, if you'll notice, under balancing work and family, had a required course for graduation. So what we're proposing here is if we are unable to fill that position, that graduation credit would drop balancing work and family if we don't have an instructor for that specific course, and that increase would simply move to an elective so that your total number of graduation requirement credits does not change. You're just shifting in the event that we're unable to fill that position.
And if it's filled, it goes right back.
It stay right where it's at if we're able to fill it.
Would we be able to vote on this later after you have had an opportunity to fill it? I mean,
We could come back in August with this to see where we're at right before school starts, certainly.
Are you saying you want to table it, Tony?
I think we value having that class or something.
Well, I'm not disagreeing.
Yes, I
We
would.
could vote on it tonight. We can always rescind it, and leave it the way it was, but whichever you want to do.
I didn't know that we had that option. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with either, as long as to that point, if we do get somebody hired, we would bring it back.
Stays the same.
and bring it back.
I would say that your motion include, if we're unable to fill the position,
It moves to.
then the one credit from balancing work and family would shift to an elective, a total of 20 credits from the current 19. If we're able to fill it, then there would not be a reason to change this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and no more discussion? Paul? I know you're the one, I was just gonna move it, so. I'll move that we leave it the same if we get the position filled. If it's not, we drop the one for balancing work and family and add one elective to credits.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mike, seconded by Tony, to adopt the graduation requirements, which incorporate dropping balancing work and family and adding that to electives if we're unable to fill the family and consumer sciences position. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, discuss/approve handbooks which include elementary student and parent handbook, RLC handbook, and high school student handbook. Beginning on page.
They're at the back on the tab.
Under the tabs, yeah.
Tabs, Paul.
All right. Do you want to kind of summarize them for us, Joe?
What I'd like to do is have Mrs. Carlson take care of the elementary, and I will start prepping the middle school, high school, since Mrs. Christian is unable to be here this evening.
So the elementary handbook, you can add.
Sure.
The only changes I made were dates and names. Update those pieces of staff and and then the only other change I made was the character strong is our behavior curriculum, and in our handbook previously it was character counts. So I just changed the verbiage to match with our
So two changes, staff names and the character strong rather than character counts. Any questions on the elementary student handbook? Do you want these motions made?
You can do it together.
Okay.
In the past you have,
Okay.
unless there's an area of concern. If you take a look at the middle school, high school student handbook, all changes are highlighted. So your first one is on page 15 of that handbook. The change here is adding the word may be required so that there is some latitude within the discretion of the building principal for extenuating circumstances if there are unexcused absences.
I'm not seeing
I
highlighted.
don't think so.
Okay.
Bold, it's bolded about
Bold.
2/3 of the way down.
2/3 of the way down, it's in bold. So unexcused absences and school suspensions. After 3 unexcused days of absence, the student may, it's in all bold.
Okay.
Okay, go to the top of page 16, again in all bold, first paragraph. Students are required to have a pass anytime they are in the hallways during class. Page 17. Under open campus guidelines qualifications. Recommendation is to remove the language test scores, proficient and or increasing from the requirements for that open campus for seniors guideline. Part of that is simply you've got some seniors who move in who do not necessarily have those test scores immediate. Other cases, it's just a clerical challenge in order to process who's improving or who is a proficient score. Currently, we have reading, math that are required, and we've got a science basically that used to be required. But we're still assessing in some cases, but it's just which of these we're going to use because in some cases one may improve or go up and the others don't. So basically the recommendation from Mrs. Christians is to simply drop that component from these requirements because it has caused some issues with split scores, maybe 2 go up, 1 go down, for example, and then arguing over whether or not that should qualify or not qualify. So it's just created issues, I guess it's a simple way to put it. If you now flip to page 23 of that packet, very bottom paragraph, will nots are being added in bold. Students are expected to use the hallway locker to store daily class items. Locker room lockers will not be available unless students have PE class or are in athletics before or after school. The locker rooms will not be open during most of the day. That was an implementation change that was put into place last year as a result of your vape sensors and that area being a high frequency vape sensor detection alert, where we have students because it's less supervised area. We provide the lockers in the hallway. As a result, they don't necessarily need to go into the locker room 8 times during the day, for example. Bottom of page 24, under student discipline. Starting at the end of the second line, when in the office area, cell phones are not allowed. This is simply to eliminate some issues and to establish some standards of decorum as far as the use of cell phones. The other piece is if you've got students entering the nurse's office or you have students who are there for disciplinary purposes, there really shouldn't be cell phones out videotaping individuals who are in the office for whatever reason. You also have your counseling office located there. So there's a multitude of reasons. It's just not an appropriate place. It is an area that they are planning this year to work with staff to have continued discussions about the use of cell phones and the distractions overall within the building. There needs to be more discussion to make sure that staff are all on the same page. Currently, from what I understand, you've got some staff in middle school, high school that would like them banned completely and others who do not want to see that happen at all. So they need to get on the same page from a consistency point of view first. So there may be some changes that will come down the road as further discussions take place. And it's very possible those may vary a little bit based on age as well. The majority of the problems last year, I believe, were at the middle school level in terms of cell phone use or abuse. On page 25, top of the page, in bold, any student on or in suspension will have their cell phone and possibly computer taken from them till the end of the school day. Failure to comply with this request will result in the student being placed on out-of-school suspension. The intent here is they shouldn't be on social media or pushing out other content while they're on an in-school suspension. We've had issues where it's led to other disciplinary problems because of student-to-student bullying or inappropriate content being shared at those times. Also on page 25, corrective measures may include but are not limited to the striking of may be assigned by any school employee so that the detentions before or after school would be coordinated through the office. Page 28.
Going back to that one, Joe, do we need to clarify that then so that they know that it's coordinated by the?
If you strike it, you kind of leave it open to anybody, but.
I think that is in part their intent. Now that I think about it, the middle school staff have formed their own after-school detention that could be assigned. So rather than send them to the office for disciplinary action, they are trying to take care of some of this themselves by manning their own after-school detention for a short period of time in order to address corrective behaviors that need to take place.
But who will it be assigned by then?
I still think they want to coordinate it through the office so that they have a way of tracking that data within their disciplinary system.
Do we need to add that to a motion then, that it be coordinated by the?
Basically, all you're striking is maybe assigned by any school employee.
Okay.
They want it to go through the office,
Okay.
I believe, so that there is a documentation trail to go
Okay.
with that. Next page, page 28, and there are a number of areas here. Under illegal items found in school or in students' possession. End of that first paragraph. Magnetic wands may be used at any time to locate contraband. Pocahontas area has added that, and I believe we had a report toward the end of the year. We actually, the first day they tried using one. Vapes were identified and located. Very good. On a student. They're fairly new to us, but it's another tool basically. Once we know the sensors are going off, in order to find them. Because we do not want to be in the process of patting kids down. This is a much easier and less intrusive way to identify that contraband. Under deliveries to school, this is new. We do not allow deliveries from restaurants or food or drink establishments such as coffee shops, candy stores, health drink shops. Please do not have food delivered to the school for your lunch or as a beverage to drink during the day. Our main office is not equipped to handle deliveries from the outside of school official business. While we do understand and acknowledge that some exceptions may be warranted, such situations must have administrative approval prior to the delivery of the food or drink. Toward the end of the year, it just got to be a revolving door that was difficult to manage. At the very bottom of page 28, under junior class fundraiser, second sentence to the end, fundraiser activity will be determined by the prom sponsor in conjunction with administration. It would be working at the concession stand during volleyball, winter activities, or selling a determined item. Students who do not participate in fundraising will be assessed a fee to attend prom. Fees for attending prom and for the cost of graduation, gowns, caps, flowers, program costs, etc. $50 for each event, totaling $150. Page 29, under interferences in school. After the bold print, students who do not comply with this expectation may have their device confiscated by instructor and/or office staff. So if the cell phone or electronic device is causing a disruption to the school, then it may be taken so that the disruption is controlled. Students refusing to follow cell phone policies will be sent home. All personal items are the student's responsibility. The school will not accept responsibility for loss, theft, misuse, or destruction of these items. Obviously, we tried to get to the bottom of that, but we cannot be responsible for every single person that walks through the doors. And sometimes we don't have a camera in the right place. We strongly encourage parents not to call or text students during the school day. Students are not allowed to check their phones for messages during classes nor answer calls. So parents who need to contact students for an emergency should contact the main office so that we can call them in. Page 31. The addition under student complaints, last sentence, adding the school counselor with the principal. So student may discuss this matter with the school counselor or principal under student complaints, so that there's two locations for students to be able to go to. Page 34, under search and seizure. Again, toward the bottom of that section, magnetic wands may be used to locate such contraband, being added. Page 36, operating under the assumption that you are going to approve the graduation change, because that's also included in the handbook. The scratching of balancing work and family and increasing general electives to 20 if we're unable to hire a family consumer science teacher. Page 37, changing number of days for schedule changes from the first 3 days to the first 2 days of each semester now. Schedules are done far enough in advance. They really don't need 3 days, and by the time you get into the third day, you have had a fair amount of content that has been lost by switching classes at that time. Grade reports. Students receive progress reports in the form of online report cards at the end of each semester. Midterm grades are also posted in the Infinite Campus parent portal. That's just clarifying current technology. Page 38. Under academic awards, honor plaques are awarded to second, third, fourth year academic award winners. These plaques are presented to seniors prior to graduation. The removal of that, as that has not been done, I don't believe, for a few years. But the dropping of that. Page 39, recommending under open enrollment.
Quick question on that last striking of the flags. Did we used to make those ourselves and ask them in the board?
I believe years ago, yes.
Where it started?
Yep. Under open enrollment, page 39, adding the word office after superintendents for clarification purposes. Student progress, the next section down. Second sentence, student progress information is available at any time through Infinite Campus parent portal. Again, just clarifying current technology. And the last sentence in that paragraph, for assistance on accessing the portal, please contact the main office so that they know where to go if they're having difficulty with their parent portal. Page 40, study halls, restricted study halls. Last sentence in that first paragraph, students receiving 2 or more D's, F's at midterm or quarters will be placed on restricted study hall. They have not actually had a restricted study hall for some time, so this is an updating to current practice. Down the last bullet under that, addition of use an assignment notebook or planner to help you stay organized. Under senior year plus, striking the first paragraph completely and adding the Senior Year Plus program provides eligible high school students 9 through 12 the opportunity to get a jump start on college by earning college credit before attending college on a full-time basis. There's no cost to the student. Options include concurrent enrollment and online courses taught through Canvas online platform. Then it carries over to page 41, and all of that top 2/3, including everything above the strike through, are all updated pieces of information to match current practice. So that's all new. Page 43, under major violations, this would be under the bus offenses. You see at number 5, under major, it says smoking. The addition here is or vaping. Page 44. And those numbers, I don't believe, are correct.
I think it went to 385.
$4.85 for an adult lunch.
Or at 3:20.
It should be $4.85. And it should be $3.20 for the student. So those need to be updated. Breakfast serves each morning at a cost of, that should be $2.30, so that's correct. Next page is found on page 53. Reporting injuries. Report the injury to the school office nurse, because the nurse has been the lead for injuries and to help with the completion of injury reports. So that's just clarification of practice that's been in place. And I believe that is the last modification for the middle school, high school packet for their handbook.
There's an RLC section as well, correct?
That is correct. You should have a short one on RLC. Dates have been updated on page 6 of the RLC. Students who reapply for the program may not be admitted for 3 weeks. That is to allow or to align with past practice so that there's time to work with counselors. Top of page 7, reapplication process is as follows. Adding after semicolon, students have the option to return to their home school district to continue their education. Same thing that's been in place for years, but clarification. Parking. Students are not to park in the church parking lots or on the streets. Again, this is to align with current practice where we require them to use the student parking lots that we have south of the elementary for the RLC students, so that those vehicles are on school grounds. And that's the only change to the RLC.
That's all the policies we were to look at, correct?
Those would be your 3 handbooks for this evening. Then we'll come back with the employee handbook update for next month.
And if we make a motion, we need to make sure we refer to page 44 under the middle school, high school, the rates for
Modification or correcting those to match with the current lunch rates.
Anyone like to make a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve the handbooks for the elementary, for the middle school, high school, and for the RLC, with the correction made to the middle school, high school, page 44, cafeteria policy, lunch for students, 320 instead of 315, and for adults, 485 instead of 414.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Nick to approve the handbooks with the amendment as mentioned. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next item, discuss/approve second reading of board policies for federal funds.
What we're recommending tonight is second and final reading for those policies. These are the ones we talked about last month that are in addition to the policies that you've had in place in the past due to the increase in federal funding that's come down the line the last couple of years because of COVID. We're not the only school district. Most schools our size have been bumped into that second audit, which you had as a part of your audit report from the auditor, requiring that these policies be put into place. I've already been taking phone calls from other schools who also have to add these same policies, who have already asked for copies of ours because they were recommended to come to us basically to try to get this from the Department of Nutrition consultants.
Move to approve the second reading of federal fund policies.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Nick, seconded by Mike to approve the second reading of the board policies for federal funds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, discuss / approve the milk bid, which is
Page 36. We tabled this last month at the request of Tony to come back and get the additional numbers. The only additional number was the skim milk white in the gallon, which we have 92 of those, and those are primarily for the preschool location for volume milk. The rest of these we did not find, but we actually even ordered during the course of the last year. So the ice cream machine mix, even though we have purchased it, we did not get through the milk vendor. It was actually done through the regular vendor. They order all the other supplies and food items from, basically. So as a result of that, the only other real difference here is the Chems bid does not include any credits for expired milk. So in other words, if you have snow days, which occasionally do happen, that could become a charge to the district. I have tried to put a number to that. Further on the right, as far as column to the far right, as far as credits, for a total of $485 that have been in credits that AE would provide versus Kemp's. That brings your total difference down between the two, $717.46. Not included in that is that Kemp's does not provide the straws as well. Not necessarily an item for bidding purposes, but AE does actually come in and keep track of how much milk students are consuming on a daily rate and actually work with providing recommendations for that. Kemp's would not do so in the past. Their deliveries have been early morning hours prior to staff even being here, as far as being able to actually interact with individuals. Kemp's is your low bid by that $717.46 as best we can estimate.
Is last year the first year that we went with Kemp's?
This last year, we switched back to AE. We have had Kemp's in the past. The last time I believe we had it, we had issues with their milk production, sour milk. Their process had some glitches of some kind. We believe the state they had worked those out, but that was the last time that we used it. And I believe that particular year, we actually switched back because of the production issues that they were having on their half pint product. But that's been a couple years back now. So the last 2 years, I believe you have had AE.
And they were the low bid the last 2 years.
Well, correct. And then last year, you just continued on with that same bid because you were allowed to do so.
Okay.
Any idea what we'd spend over the course of the year on straws?
I was not able to put a price tag to that. If you take a look, you're looking at over 100,000 half pints. So if each half pint has a straw, you're looking at 100,000 straws, or at least in the upper tens of thousands of straws.
What's your recommendation as far as in talking with Jeannie? Is she happy with AE and does she have?
She has been happy with AE and their ability to work with the kitchen staff.
Does she have any reservations with Kemp's?
She does have some reservations from the past simply because of some challenges with students finding themselves with milk that didn't match what they were expecting to open.
And then what was the other situation? The credits and then not being able to speak with the delivery person?
Correct.
Yeah, the consumption and recommendation information they shared, what were they advising us on?
Say that again.
You said that AE provided consumption and recommendation information.
That's simply, we actually went back to their bids. Okay, I know what you're talking about. So as far as the amount of half pints that the students are going through on a daily basis, they monitor as they're coming through so that if they need to add more or deliver a little less, they adjust on the fly based on showing up. Correct.
And that way they don't have to get so much credit.
Correct. Reduces the amount of credited product.
So we need to make a determination, is that $717 of value worth it?
Correct.
Do you have a recommendation?
I'm not a nutrition or food service director, so this is a little bit harder for me. It's clear from a dollar point of view, you've got just over a $700 difference between the two options that are available. But there has been some past concerns expressed by students and staff of both. So this one's a harder one for me because it is less, but you're currently using the AE product.
And we're stuck with it for 2 years if we.
No, this can be bid yearly. Because of the COVID situation, we were allowed to extend.
Oh, okay. So it's gonna be an annual.
Traditionally, this is an annual update. Okay, this is an annual. Do you have any recommendations?
I have an opinion, but it's just a personal opinion, it's not. Okay, personally, I like AE better. I do not get any money from that. We don't sell the AE, I just like it better. That's just my personal opinion. And when you're looking at straws and replacement costs, I'm looking at 117. But, and if Jeannie likes it better.
My wife's in food service and they use the AE out there. The guy's a really, really nice fella. I mean, if you have a problem, he gets to the bottom of it really fast.
Is Kemp's Iowa based or not? Not that it matters.
I believe it is.
I couldn't tell you for sure.
Some of the quality comparison feedback you had, was there any reduction in consumption? Are kids drinking less milk because it's one variety than the other?
I'd have to go back 2 years to be able to answer that question. Almost 3 years probably. The consumption or the amount usage that we asked for the quotes on was based on what was used this past year. So the date is there from 3 years ago, but I wouldn't have that at my fingertips.
Comparable ratio of number of students and all that. Anybody have a strong opinion one way or the other?
If you haven't had any problems with AE, I think you stick with it.
Sounds like a motion.
Well, and if they offer credit and they offer straws, if you do, say, a penny a straw and 100,000 straws, you're saving a lot of money, so. I'll make a motion to approve AE for our milk provider.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Dustin, seconded by Mike to approve the AE bid for milk, even though it's $717.46 higher, but it does include some extra services. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. With that, would anyone be in favor of having a short break of 5 minutes to use the restroom facility?
I would be in favor of that.
Okay, we need a motion, I think.
I make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Jolene, seconded by Tony to take a 5-minute recess, come back here at 9:30. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
It's hard. I know some parts, but other than that, I enjoyed it. I do Google Translate, or I found another website to do, yeah. Or I asked them to put the right digits, yes.
There's 4 sections. A lot of times, maybe a full year and a half, 2 years. Get it. August. She took it. So basically,
Yes, I did share some of those classes.
we're trying to do that in
She said, you're reading this so far.
Thank you, though.
Yeah. Is that a accounting thing?
Yeah, she passed her last. Last CPA exam, so she's a licensed.
Wonderful.
Nick is as well, isn't he? I think he is. Dwayne was, but I think he let it expire.
I can't remember if he took it because I don't think Jeff required it. I'm not sure.
I want to say that Nick is, but I don't know.
I couldn't tell you for sure.
You and I wrote Taylor's there, how we go on passing the exam.
I don't remember him taking the test, but he wouldn't, I mean, they were meeting, but I wouldn't mind it, so I'm not sure.
You didn't help him on the test?
I didn't help him on the test. He really wanted me to, but I just couldn't fit it in my schedule. Molly's internship going better this year than last year on strikes, right?
Yeah, much better.
Apparently he could hear me talking.
Oh, yeah, I should probably. Be at 9:30, we should probably resume. We need a motion to come back into session.
So moved.
Who wants to be the second? Joey.
I'll be the second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Nick, seconded by Jolene to resume session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign, motion carries. So the next item on our agenda is to discuss / approve the Pomeroy facility decision. My feeling at this point is, I don't think we're making a decision on the future of the building tonight. There is more time for the community to make plans, choose on options. This isn't something that we're going to start tearing down the building in the near future. I don't know how fast something like that would happen. The other thing I want to mention is the building obviously is owned by the district. So the district at some point has to make a decision. And I know there's talk about it's a city building. I just want to clarify, I mean, it's owned by the school district at this point in time. So the district obviously has to make a meeting or make a decision at some point. And I certainly understand, and I think the board in general understands, there's a lot of sentiment to the building. And that happens. And we understand that. This is a decision that weighs heavily on the board. It's not a decision that's taken lightly. I mean, we've probably all been through buildings being torn down, buildings being vacated at schools that we came from, et cetera. So please know we don't take this decision lightly. It's not something we just casually decide, well, we just got to tear it down. That's not the case at all. It's a tough decision. In my opinion, what we need to proceed with tonight is really our only next measure is to, if we go down the road of dismantling and tearing down the school, the first step is to do asbestos abatement and do some testing and estimates on the cost to abate the asbestos. Personally, I don't see that as a problem to move forward with that, because at some point that has to be done. Whether that building is owned by a private entity or a private individual, that's gonna have to be done at some point in time. So in my opinion, that's not a bad thing to proceed with, at least getting costs and estimates and the potential date to do that type of work. Like I say, other than that, I don't think we really have anything to decide imminently tonight.
No, and I just assume that Chris here anyway, because he was the one that moved for the 90. If I remember right, Chris is the one that actually moved for the 90 days, such and such a date.
No, it was Dustin and Chris.
Well, Gus seconded.
What Mike is stating that, he would prefer to have Chris present, and, you know, I understand that. And when we had our meeting in March, was it March meeting? April meeting, excuse me. Chris was one of the persons that recommended that, if we make a motion to close the facility, that we do this within 90 days. Anything else, Mike? Well, you can speak for yourself, but you have to speak into the microphone so that people can hear.
I have nothing else on that. But I would move, if you want, if you think that, and we can discuss this, to get bids.
Can't hear you.
Is it working? It is working. I would move to start getting bids for the asbestos abatement.
First step would actually be for us to contract for testing
Contract for sealing
purposes.
this, yeah.
So the next step would be, have to say that again, Joe?
The next step would be to hire a contractor to actually perform the testing to determine exactly what is and what is not asbestos containing. Because you don't want to pay a premium if you do have to abate for items that are suspected. You want to know, because the quality control is different. The level of removal requires higher scrutiny and higher cost if it is an asbestos containing product. So the first step would be to have those products tested so that you know exactly what is and what is not asbestos containing as a first step. The other piece I would ask for input from you on, we talked prior, I believe, 3 months ago, closing the doors, locking those off to use, in which case then blueprints would also be an option. But I would not recommend that if you've got people in the building, because we still have students using those on weekends.
If we allowed a limited use of architectural and CAD drawings strictly to a licensed architect of Pomeroy's choice, no public distribution, very limited outside of that, could that take place while there were still students or programs that use it on the weekend or whatever? Very controlled disclosure for Pomeroy to have those documents only to an architect.
I would not have a problem if it's an architect. I would probably suggest to you that there would be an agreement that they would not be distributed to other individuals without the board's permission to do so. But if the city of Pomeroy had a particular architect they would like to look at those blueprints, I don't think that would necessarily be a safety concern for students. I just would have a concern if you're going to distribute them freely, that there is some inherent risk potentially there. And that liability comes back on the school district.
So we have two items. We can direct you to begin asbestos abatement testing. And then the next item we probably should address, and I assume we could do this in one motion, is to address, get me set straight on this, give the ability to share those with a limited audience.
If we had an architect identified with an agreement not to distribute, I have most of that scanned that could very easily be forwarded to an architect. I just would not, again, feel comfortable with those being distributed unless you put chains on the doors.
Right. There's a third piece that I would ask the board to consider at the same time in that motion, and that was some of the previous discussion around the $1.2 million estimated financial obligation for asbestos and tearing it down, but Pomeroy is offering us some potential alternatives that may or may not be restricted under public use. I would ask us to instruct Joe to set up a closed session with our attorney for the purpose of discussing potential sale of property. And after that, we could then have a meeting with Pomeroy. So could we do all three of those in one motion?
I don't see a problem.
Okay, so I kind of rattled them off. I'll try to put that into a motion. So our first motion is that we do want to proceed with asbestos abatement testing and have Joe start that. We want to schedule a closed session with the board and our attorney to discuss the potential sale of property and how that might fit into a public use clause to help us reduce the $1.2 million financial obligation if possible. And the third piece of this motion is that we will authorize the disclosure of the architectural drawings and CAD to a specific architect listed by Pomeroy, as long as they would offer that with a specific strict limited agreement to not distribute beyond that architect. If you had another professional, we'd have to look at that one individual at a time, but we will work with you to share those with a professional under a limited basis.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion made by Tony with all three of those items targeted. I'm not gonna repeat all that. Seconded by Mike. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Yes, Tony and Mike.
Okay.
Tony made the motion, Mike seconded. So, next item. Discuss/approve legislative priorities for IASB. And that begins on page 38.
For your priorities, last month you asked me to go back and look at what you'd done the year before. So on page 38 at the top, I aligned the 4 items that you selected as a board to be turned into ISB and renumbered those according to this document, basically. So 7, 8, 11, and 14 match up to this document, not a year ago's document. So if you go back and look through notes, the numbers are going to look different because of what they actually selected. So as a result, if you take a look at number 7, which is on page 40, mental health was one of your areas. 8, special education funding was another area that you had identified a year ago. Page 41, number 11, teacher recruitment and licensure. And number 14, somehow I missed.
School funding policies.
School funding policies on page 43. Those would be the 4 that were selected a year ago that you submitted.
My personal opinion is things have not changed enough to really mess with those priorities. I mean, mental health continues to be one of our biggest challenges. Are they in order of importance? Or is it?
It's just
you're supposed
your
to give
4.
them 4?
I would agree with you, Paul. I think those 4 are, continue to be.
Can we add one if we choose?
I believe they only take
They only allow
4.
you 4, okay.
It's a drop-down
Did you have
menu
one,
if I'm
Mike?
remembering correctly.
Well,
We could replace it.
I'm just saying, the stuff that's went on with Fort Dodge and stuff, I almost gotta say school safety is almost
Oh,
getting
yeah.
top of the list.
You could argue it.
I would argue it's school safety.
And I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Fort Dodge is a bad community, it's just, they've had a lot of
If we do
bad
that,
press lately.
if we do that, which one do you propose we eliminate?
School funding policy, let's take that on ourselves. Let Iowa School Board help us with safety, mental health, special ed's a good one. I would also suggest in our current circumstance that we look at teacher recruitment and licensure and moving our priority to teacher development and retention. Still very, very closely related, and you could argue either or, but it's about getting the long-term staff that we want that represents our goals and ideals. There's a lot of good choices, and I'm not advocating necessarily that we dump what we did last year. Just wanted to consider safety, and wanted to consider retention.
I'll entertain motions.
If I can add something, if you look at 11, I'm going to draw your attention to the bottom set of bullets. So that's on page 42 of number 11. We have had issues with reciprocity agreements with other states, and we're fighting one of those currently. I think I may have alluded to it with a few of you. We've offered industrial arts to a candidate from another state. He has licensure in that state. We are still going through the hoops of trying to get that person licensed in Iowa. So it's offered contingent on getting licensure. A year ago, we had issues, 2 years ago, we had issues getting someone from Florida, and that individual, in order to get their license transferred into the state of Iowa, had to transfer their license from Florida to Missouri, and then from Missouri into Iowa in order to get all of that licensure to flow in. Those are hoops that are interfering with our ability to retain or acquire new staff who wish to work here.
That was number 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's nothing wrong with 12. I'm just.
And I'm good. In fact, I'll drop 12. I really like where you're going with that and tie in. I'll make a motion that we don't submit the 4 from last year. We replace number 14 school funding policy with number 5 safety. And offer mental health, safety, special education, teacher recruitment, and licensure as our.
What would those numbers be, Tony?
5, 7, 8, and 11.
Okay, wanted to make sure I had what you were saying.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Mike, to set up our 4 targeted areas as number 5, 7, 8, and 11. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, discuss, approve Iowa Central Community College early bird classes contract, page 52 of your packets.
We're recommending that you approve. This is how we offer our college level courses, with the majority of them to our high school age students.
This is the same as last year, Joe.
I have not compared the numbers to last year. We really don't get a lot of say in this contract.
They send it to us and
We either accept it or we don't offer
we
it.
don't accept it, so.
Yep.
And it's been successful.
It's been very successful.
I'll move to approve contract.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by Nick, seconded by Jolene to approve the 2023-2024 contract with Iowa Central Community College. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, discuss/approve. What's SU stand for?
Help me out with what it stands for.
It's already fixed it, equipment stuff.
This is your fixed repair insurance plan that we've had in place for a number of years. So this is where we bill I'll use Phil as an example. When he spends time to repair a computer, we're allowed to then submit the time that he's having to do it or for the parts necessary to do it so that those repairs can be made. They're then submitted to the insurance carrier for that fixed repair. It includes other things besides just computers, but that gives you an example of probably where we have our largest volume of submissions.
How much do we use in a year?
It's gonna be a Karen question as far as the dollar figure, as far as where we're currently at, as far as submissions.
I don't really see those commissions, usually they're paid directly to the company, especially Phil, if he has stuff done. The insurance company and whoever Phil uses to fix those computers or whatever it is taken care of through the insurance company. I don't see those.
It's probably gonna be in the neighborhood of that 70 to 80% of that total amount.
So we've also, I sat down with Nolan and, not realizing there's a lot of stuff on here that we can use for paying, fix it, insurance. So that will probably maybe increase as years go on, just by,
Under the same coverage, expanded usage of our policy.
So this doesn't cover something like lightning striking a building and harming the software?
That's gonna fall under a different portion of your EMC insurance, right? This is a separate
This is
one that
kinda
they
over and above
oversee, but
supplemental.
this is above
Okay.
loss and casualty.
And oddly, or not oddly maybe, but, is this a school-based service? I noticed that our enrollment played into their expectations and obviously premium basis, number of computers, et cetera. Do they specialize in schools?
This particular policy, I believe, was written for schools, for repairs. If you go back probably 5, 8 years ago, this probably didn't even exist as an option.
The costs have gone up significantly.
Costs have gone up and they found a market is really what it boils down to. Because what you're doing is insurance you're paying for out of management. So you're shifting some of these expenses over into management instead of coming out of your general fund.
Okay.
That is really the
So that's another
incentive benefit from this particular participation in this program. On page 55, that 78 is a one-year premium for 23-24, but there is the option that you could extend that for multiple year options if you wanted to lock in that value for your insurance coverage.
So this year it went up $5,837.
Correct.
So like, when we had issues with the fire alarms in Pomeroy, did this insurance cover that?
That was covered under the regular casualty insurance through EMC.
Okay,
That particular one was.
okay.
Well, I don't see I see some value in locking it in for 3 years if we think we're gonna do this for the next 3 years.
How many years have we been on?
We've been doing this now for 4 or 5, probably.
Love to lock in my medical insurance for the next.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd make a motion to accept this and take advantage of the 3-year option to lock in our price.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Jolene to accept the 2023 renewal proposal from SU Insurance Company and taking advantage of the 3-year lock-in on premium. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That's just part of their name, SU Insurance Company. Next item, discuss/approve disposal of bus number 22 at auction. Jeff, do you have any information on that one?
It's 2007. It's developed fuel tank is leaking. Possible to replace the fuel tank for the bus for, but yeah, about 180,000 miles on it.
It's a backup bus, I assume?
It's very bus. It probably hasn't had 500 miles in the last 5 years.
And we would just, in this case, we would take it to auction. Local auction is.
And we are in the process of looking at other options to see if there are some additional used buses. Typically, we want to do that on a yearly basis, 1 or 2 to keep the fleet age up to date. Just to make you aware, that is something that would be coming next down the road.
One of the next.
Right now, due to the market, it's about 16 months out for a new bus. And there are no used buses because it takes so long to get a new bus.
So that might be something we're looking at one of the next couple of meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did find 2019 down in Des Moines. I got to be down there next week, 3 days for meetings. If I get time, I'd like to go look at it. It's only got 2,500 miles on it. School district ordered it in and then they take it.
Very good. Anyone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Nick, seconded by Tony to approve the disposal of bus number 22 at auction. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Personnel, resignations. Amanda Goots, Associate. Tracy Royster, Associate. Yvette Kramer, Title I Reading. Brett Johnson, Assistant Boys Basketball. Brooke Seiler, Head Girls Track. Bill Meacham, Middle School Boys Football. And then with our addition, Robbie Kudla-Gosman, bus driver.
Well, I'll just take the time to thank them for their time over the years. I know I'm looking at some sports ones here, basketball, track, football, and of course associates in Title I Reading, but I know they all put extra time into their day, especially when it comes to sports. So thank them for that and wish them luck. I know some of them are still here. Wish them luck.
Do we have a motion for the resignation approvals?
Move to approve with appreciation from the district.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mike, seconded by Jolene to approve the resignations as read with appreciation of their service to the district. We don't want to, we can't overemphasize that. We appreciate everyone that's been here and put in time. And please make sure they know that, Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, contracts. Do you have a name for an associate?
We do
for us,
not have
Joe?
a response yet. We have
Okay.
offered a position, but we've not got a response back.
So we have Tyler Bruns, maintenance and grounds. Jeff Mefford, head boys basketball coach. Dennis Correll, industrial education pending Iowa licensure.
Can we make a motion to review these individually? And my reasoning is what I talked about earlier with the PR committee, that 2 of those hires are directly at those 2 areas of public relations that I want that committee to offer some insight into what we're seeking before we fill that position. And I know we've already started the interview process, but we did so without the board giving guidance to the AD in the case of the basketball coach and to the administration and principal, and nor have we gotten information from the other public as far as what we're looking for. Now, I know there's a time frame in filling those teachers, and there's a time frame in filling those coaching positions. This is something that, again, why I didn't want to wait a month. We can act on this in the next couple of weeks. But I do want to make a motion to separate our vote on these contracts for the reason of those two specifically related to public relations.
So you're making a motion to do a roll call vote, I assume is what you're.
He wants to make it so all three are separate, Paul.
We treat the contract separate. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second.
So we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Dustin to approve the contracts as read individually. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Aye. Motion carries. So our next measure then is to do these in favor,
Just
in
do
order.
one for four, yeah.
Okay. So our first motion is for Tyler Bruns, maintenance and grounds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Can I back you up? Just for Karen's purposes. Karen, do you need a separate, if they're separating these out, do they need to have a separate motion for each individual? Okay, I believe.
So I'll make a motion to approve Tyler Bruns maintenance and grounds.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Nick, seconded by Jolene to approve the contract for Tyler Bruns, maintenance and grounds.
Is that what he does now? Is that what Tyler does now, maintenance and grounds?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I'll clean up the next one by making the motion in the other direction. I have nothing against Jeff at all. This is just about the interview process for that position and that we have that public relations aspect in that position. So I would make a motion that we do not accept this contract at this time, that we have the meeting with the PR committee and the PR committee meets with the AD to advise on the hiring of the basketball head coach position.
Advise on the individual or advise on,
You don't want to be involved in anything.
right, you don't want to be involved with the
This is
individual.
what we're looking for,
position.
Eric. Please go out and find the best person to meet this. We need to tell him that before he hires, and that's why I would like to advise him on that before the process. And I know I'm a little out of cadence and where we're already at. I know Jeff has already been offered a contract, but as the board, I would not accept that at this point and feel due to the public relations aspect of basketball, we need to take a broader perspective in the interview process, and I'd like to have the PR committee look at that. The motion is to not approve the contract at this time, but to submit that contract to the PR committee for review and discussion with the AD.
Not approve contract.
So basically, there would be no motion based on, I think, what I'm hearing, because there'd be no action.
It's a motion to not take action on this contract at this time? Or is it?
You could make a motion to table.
Okay, a motion to table until the PR committee looks at it. What's the right way of stating this?
I think that would be fine.
I think that could work.
All right, I'll make a motion to table the head basketball contract until the PR committee reviews that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, the only thing I would state is, to me, we're treading, crossing the line, in my opinion. The board doesn't hire staff.
We're not hiring staff.
And in fact, I'll take the very specific policy for you. I did the research on this already. Specific to the hiring of this position and the board's requirements are stated in the series. It is our responsibility under Code 400 to provide the qualifications and duty, and that is at the complete discretion of the board. The public perception of our strength of staff under Code Ethics 204 responsibilities of the board. Both of those, it is our responsibility and our complete discretion to define the qualifications and duties of that role. I'm not advocating that we interview that person. I'm advocating that we go define that role and responsibility to the AD before he defined that person.
Well, and what I'm getting at, and Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. We don't hire staff. We already have policy in place on our coaches and our teaching positions and our bus drivers and.
And it's insufficient in our public eye today.
All right. Well, that's the only thing I was gonna mention, is we have policy in place. We're looking at, I don't know what we're looking at, the possibility of amending it, or?
I would strongly suggest the possibility of amending our hiring policy for those specific positions to directly state what the goals and objectives of the school board and district are.
So we have a motion made by Tony, seconded by Dustin. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Aye.
Fail.
We may need clarification here.
Three, it fails, doesn't it?
Who voted for it? Raise your hand. Who voted against it? Raise your hand.
Okay, that's failed vote.
That's failed vote.
It's not a majority, so. Again, the only thing I would state with that is we need a basketball coach and we need to get someone in place to work on summer practices. We're probably already behind the 8 ball with that. So the sooner we get a basketball coach in place, the better.
My opinion is I feel that shouldn't that position be filled with the best candidate possible? I mean, I feel that that's what we're doing, I believe.
When we can't, in my opinion, we're not.
To teach students to be respectful of others, to represent our school, to play the game of basketball and be a nice community, outstanding person. And
here's the question I would ask today. If you had the most perfect X's and O's coach out there, but not very strong at recruiting and engagement and bringing more students in, or you have somebody who's not as, you have somebody who's not as good at X's and O's, maybe not as good at basketball coach, but very strong at student engagement, very strong at bringing people who would want to be in the program. And right now, we just came from a boycott. Just walked out of, nobody wants to be in basketball. So if we take this action without gathering input from the stakeholders, understanding what it is that we are trying to achieve in that, and we just arbitrarily put somebody else into that position, we're already getting negative public feedback. It's already come out since we published this on Friday. And we'll continue down that path if we don't incorporate the public opinion. That said, we do have a time frame. You're 100% right. And we do have an obligation to get somebody in there for those students. And I'm not advocating that we push this off any great length of time.
So I guess my question would be, do you want us to hire someone different, or do you want us to change the policies for coaches
I
in
want us
general?
to change the policy for coaches in general to define.
And I don't see the reason we couldn't do that at a later, I mean, we can do that. I don't see that as something that's not approachable on another agenda item. I just don't see the value in holding up our hiring process, of which we've already made an offer. That's my only thinking. And maybe it's something this PR group works on is you have the opinion. I don't know if I share that opinion or not, to be honest.
Oh, very fair.
Maybe that's something this PR group works on that, if you target why that's a problem and solutions to the problem, we possibly implement some of those following the PR group's recommendation to the board.
So one thing I'll caution you to consider as you're going through it, and you can certainly set kind of a parameter as far as what kind of qualities you want to emphasize or that you would like to target for your hiring of coaches or any other position for that matter. But you also, I'm going to caution you to be careful the message you're also sending to people who are applying, who get offered a position, who then are not approved for those positions, But also the message you're sending to your new athletic director, who involved both principals, another head coach, and himself to do the interview process. The message that you're also sending there is not necessarily going to help with recruitment.
It's not the only message we're gonna send the AD. We're gonna sit down with him and define exactly why we're asking for that. And this isn't the first time I brought this up. I warned against this in advance, and here we are. And so I am standing on the ground that I've stated before. I believe it's best for the students. I believe it's best for the staff. And when we look at this, it will be Eric's decision, but he will get advice and counsel from the board on what he's looking for. And when we look at that policy, I would strongly suggest that he get advice and counsel from the other coaching staff, as well as the youth programs in any sport that we're looking for, so that we tie all the communities served into what we're trying to serve in that athletic function.
That certainly can be done. Again, I'm not sure it's working the right direction, but we can have differences of opinion, whether or not the youth program should drive who the head coach is, or whether the head coach should have some input with what would help develop a program.
It's just a large discussion that, I mean, we could spend hours on.
Yes.
And Dave, I shouldn't say hours, we could spend months on.
We sure could. And this one's in front of us today. I would like to get Chris back, have the PR group meet on that. That failed. So right now, this comes down to a yes or no vote on the position that's there.
Do we want to vote again? If it fails again, table it?
I think we could table it until.
I think we could table it until we can get Chris to vote on it. Chris will be the sending vote, either approve it or send it.
Do we need a motion to table it?
No, you have no action as of right now, so the motion failed.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one.
And different scenario as far as public negative. From a PR perspective, I see this one as a big public positive. There's a huge chance with the industrial arts hire to tie in the communities and the businesses and different areas where what would potential employers in the area like to see. And I know we're struggling for this. This guy's coming from out of state. There's some licensure confirmation that has to take place. This one's a tighter time frame. School starts long before basketball does. Do we have background on who he is, what his resume looks like? Do we get to see those and how this?
Again, you could table this, and we can certainly share some of those details with
But
you.
if we approve.
But I'm gonna tell you.
As soon as he gets his license, we're probably gonna approve him anyway, aren't we?
We're approving it subject to his license.
Yes.
If he makes.
If he gets his license,
My feeling is we need to
essentially
get
he's hired.
this
We gotta
going.
have an industrial arts teacher.
This is a case where you have an applicant.
Yes.
Who has multiple,
If we table it.
who has
I mean,
multiple
if we
offers
table it or
on the
whatever,
table.
I mean, he's,
Okay, all right.
essentially, he's been offered a job.
For this job?
He is the best candidate you have available.
So I move that we take Dennis Correll as an industrial arts teacher pending his licensing.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mike, seconded by Nick to approve the contract for Dennis Correll, industrial arts education position pending he receiving an Iowa licensure. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, renewed part-time, is that what the PT stands for?
Yes.
Custodial contracts for Bill Strack and Robert Brinkman with a 3% raise.
We just simply left those two names off the list because they weren't in the full-time contracted group. However, they have been working with the district for years and should be offered some part-time contracts so they know they've got some contracted work. And in my opinion, they deserve the 3% raise like everybody else.
I apologize for leaving him off the.
Well, we just didn't catch it.
We didn't catch it. I'm part of that committee, so I apologize for missing that.
I am as well.
Well, what did you do that for?
We have a
On
motion.
purpose. I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
A motion made by Nick, seconded by Jolene to approve the 3% raise for custodial contracts for Bill Strack and Robert Franklin. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Discuss/approve suspended students to receive services at central office during summer only.
So we've got one of your students who was on the long-term suspension who will be reapplying. Has been receiving services in the past from our mental health therapist. That particular student currently was seeing someone else, is no longer able to see that person. And the request has been made whether they could continue utilizing the therapist we have in district, which is centered in the central office building, up until the time that we have students and staff returning, so that there was an opportunity for at least some continuation of service.
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't either. This person, she's still on, she or he is still.
Our therapist works through the summer.
Through the summer.
Yes, and there is
They can
room.
have,
Are they utilizing the counselor or this service, that student?
This
I mean,
particular
are they
student,
showing up and?
I talked to Paul and Chris to schedule the first one, so last Friday, at the end of the day, we brought him in until we could come back to you to get
So
formal
the
approval
answer
to
is yes.
continue,
Yeah, that's good.
with the intent to continue therapy for at least once or twice a week even.
Okay,
So,
good.
so
It's
move.
important. Yep, second.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Jolene to approve the suspended student or students to receive services at central office during summer only. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item, superintendent update, date for special board meeting for student reapplications. We need to schedule one.
well, do you want me to send out dates? How would you like to find? Because I think you've got 5 that you asked to reapply to you. That,
Send out.
as late as our board meetings have been going, doesn't make sense to add on to the
I don't
end of
think
a
so.
board meeting. So to me, that probably should be a separate meeting because they're each going to be closed sessions anyway.
Yeah, it can be,
Send
we
out
can make it a
dates.
Sunday afternoon, even at that, Joe, if that would be all right with everybody else.
Good. I'm just kidding.
We've done Sunday afternoons before. I mean,
We'll start looking for some dates and I'll throw out to see what your availability is and then we can check from there.
that way we can get 3 or all 5 of them done, say everybody show up at 1 o'clock.
What kind of number are we talking?
By 5.
I think it was 5 total. I'll
Okay.
double check, but I think it was 5.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be best. I think, are we all in agreement on that?
I agree.
Okay.
We'll work
Sounds like
on
we
that
have some
then.
direction. Next regular meeting day, August 14th, 7 PM, same spot.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mike, seconded by Nick to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you, board.
Thank you.
If you've got any papers you'd like kept out of your binders, I believe Karen asked for you to remove those and if possible, return those binders to her for the next month, for the next meeting, whatever that turns out to be.
Okay.
Shut this meeting down.
Thank you.